The Prime Minister vows to take back control once and for all as he prepares to unveil the biggest crackdown on illegal migration ever.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock, it's Tuesday, the 7th of March. This is Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Thank you for your company. Leading the news this morning. The Home Secretary has promised to push the boundaries of international law as she prepares to unveil new legislation to stop small boat crossings. The measures will be rushed through Parliament today and could be in place by summer.
Matt Hancock discussed a plan to block funding for a new disabled children's centre as a way to get an MP to back new pandemic restrictions. The latest messages released by The Telegraph were sent ahead of a vote on a tougher local COVID tier system.
New analysis from cancer research has found that 75,000 GP appointments could be freed up if the government put an end to smoking. The charity is calling on the Chancellor to take action on tobacco control in the spring budget.
The Met Office has extended snow and ice warnings for much of the country as forecasters warn a major change is underway. Arctic air sweeping in from the north is expected to cause significant disruption with difficult travel conditions throughout the week.
And this is British Pie Week. We'll take you to a pub in North Yorkshire that is welcoming people from all over the country to try one of its 52 varieties of pie.
That's one for every week of the year. If you
That's
wanted
right.
a different pie
52.
every week.
What's your favourite pie?
Chicken and leek.
Oh, that's a nice
Yeah,
one.
maybe with a bit of bacon as well.
Yes.
I like a pie because it looks like you've done something quite fancy when you serve it up, but actually it's super easy.
Yeah, and maybe leftovers and whatever, but it's nice.
It looks good.
Nothing that a bit of pastry doesn't
Exactly.
make
And if you
better.
get that easy roll, then you're sorted.
Even better. So you get
Let
in
us know
touch.
your favourite
No?
pie fillings, whatever it may be.
Yeah, put your views, wrap it up in pastry, send them to us at gbviews@gbnews.uk. OK, top story this morning. The Prime Minister's vowed to take back control of the country's borders as the government prepares to announce a major crackdown on illegal migration.
GB News has been told that all irregular routes, including those by small boats or in the back of lorries, will be included within the new policy.
But as our Home Secretary, our Home Security Editor, Mark White, now reports, despite the Home Secretary's pledge to push the boundaries of international law, critics believe that it will simply be bogged down in legal challenges.
On wasteland near Calais, another migrant camp has sprung up. Hundreds of tents and other makeshift structures have been erected, offering shelter to those planning to cross illegally to the UK in the days and weeks ahead. Further up the coast, the area's largest camp, along the railway tracks near Dunkirk, has now been cleared. Evidence that authorities here are certainly trying to disperse those planning to cross the Channel. On the UK side, the government is also stepping up the pressure. New legislation, which we're told will make claiming asylum all but impossible for those entering the UK illegally, and will include a lifetime ban on claiming asylum.
Any policies that we put in place now are not some ideological or intellectual exercise. They are practical steps that's going to allow the Home Office to hopefully get their act together and to work with the democratically elected politicians to act upon what people actually want them to do.
After months of construction work, miles of security fencing is now in place around the beaches at Gravelly near Dunkirk, the site of many of the small boat launches. But in recent weeks, people smugglers have simply moved location. And many are sceptical that new legislation will make any real difference in managing a crisis that saw more than 45,000 people cross the Channel in flimsy inflatables last year.
The returns agreements are the nub on which the entire policy lands, and if that fails, if there aren't places to send all of these illegal immigrants that the government is planning to detain, then it will all fall apart and it will all be for naught. So that's a very important bit of the plan.
It's almost a year since then Prime Minister Boris Johnson made bold predictions about the government's new plan to send many asylum seekers to Rwanda. Since then, not a single flight has taken off for that country. However determined Rishi Sunak may be to ensure his plan has more success, It's certain there will be no end of challenges from those determined to block the government's latest proposals. Mark White, GB News.
Joining us now, human rights lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal about this. Harjap, all of this sounds very tough. How deliverable would it be?
Very hard to deliver, considering the fact that the Rwanda plan has delivered 0 deportations, and in the Home Office leaked document on Sunday, the Home Office admit that it will not get a flight out before March 2024, and that's despite their recent win in the courts. So it's not really workable. We're looking at mass detentions. Where are we going to detain these people? On what level? Are you talking about detaining 50,000 people? And the key to this is you can't just send people back to countries. Countries have got to be willing to accept them. We've only got return agreements with 6 to 7 countries. That's because at the time when Brexit happened, we should have negotiated maybe return agreements with 200 countries. But in all of our wisdom, we failed to do that. So the 6 or 7 countries are not going to agree to take...
What countries are you talking about? The countries of origin?
Albania is one of them. I think Serbia is another country.
Where the people are originating from?
With any countries across the world,
the majority
in total.
are coming from Albania at the moment, aren't they? So that works well to have one of those as the countries that's returning people.
But the others that are coming, say from Iraq and Syria, or from say India or Pakistan, we don't really have agreements with countries to send people to wherever they come from.
Why would countries want to accept refugees?
Well, they have to accept their people if they've been refused asylum. They should accept, but they can just deny it. You need an agreement in place. Our nearest neighbours, France, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, have all said no. But they said 2 years ago, sorry, we're not signing any return agreements with you. We're not going to have your failed asylum seekers. You can't dump them here.
But you see, it's often forgotten that these countries have probably bigger migrant problems than we have.
Yeah, they take on the majority, so they take on in millions. So Germany take on something about 2.2 million.
Yeah.
And actually the biggest countries who take on refugees are Colombia and Pakistan.
Really?
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that because you don't hear them go on about it, but they do. They take on a lot more than even Germany.
Well, Harjap, we're expecting it to be a really big set piece from the Prime Minister and from Suella Braverman. We're expected to see a lot of upset from, I suppose, the left, you could say, a lot of human rights lawyers like yourself as well. And we're going to hear lots of technicalities. And I've been reading this morning, and bear with me at home if you're watching, about a section 19.1b. Now, all of us this morning were saying, what is this? I've no idea what a section 19.1b, but this is what Rishi Sunak's going to be relying on. And as is described in Suella Braverman's own words, is pushing the boundaries of international law. So what does it mean as a human rights lawyer?
Well, in layman's, let's explain it in layman's terms. What we're going to say is, if you land here on a small boat, we're not even going to process your claim. We're going to send you back to Rwanda or send you back to another country. Now, the problem is Rwanda only has 200 places. Initially, there were 500, if you remember, and then they turned around and said, no, sorry, we've only got 200 places.
So we're talking about tens of thousands of people coming in, and 200 places.
In Rwanda, which we've spent 140 million on, and which we've sent back no one. Right, so that's the first thing. Secondly, there are no other countries. There's about 6 other countries with who we've got agreements to send people. You can't send asylum seekers back to their country of origin, because that's illegal, because then, you literally might be sending them to their death. Yeah, right. So what is going to happen here, you can't say in breach of a convention that we can't consider your claim. In the Rwanda case, the High Court was very specific. That's the High Court of this country, not of Europe. They said that you have to consider everyone's claim individually before you make a decision whether you can send them to Rwanda. Now, what we're saying, or what Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak are going to say, we're going to use an inadmissibility law, which has already been in since 2021, to say, no, sorry, you can't enter the country, you have to go elsewhere. That since 2021, since it's been brought in, we've only sent back 21 people under it. That tells you how successful it's been in 2 years.
So you would say, despite what any politician, despite what the Prime Minister, what the Home Secretary is going to say today, you would simply say, it's all huff, it's all bluff, it ain't going to happen.
being sold a dream, as always, and the fact is you're being sold a dream, it's not going to happen. We know it's not going to work because we don't have the infrastructure for it. There's already a backlog and there's already cases that can't be cleared. You saw the way they're going to deal with the backlog. They're going to give them a form to fill out themselves and say, have you been in danger? Yes. Are you in trouble? Yes. Do you want to go back? No. There you go. Thank you. That's how the idea to clear the backlog. And it is just not workable. Waste of time, waste of money. Even the immigration staff are saying it's not workable. And when your staff who are supposed to make this law work say that, then you need to listen to them.
Well, look, I want to bring in Leon Emirali, political analyst, to join this debate. Good morning to you, Leon. Look, the Prime Minister's written in the Sun newspaper this morning, and he's taken aim quite squarely at the Labour Party, saying they don't have a plan, we're trying to do something about this. He has a point, doesn't he?
Well, he does, and I think Rishi Sunak is trying to position himself as this problem solver. He's seen it with Brexit, where he's renegotiated that deal. Now he's taking on the issue of small boats and illegal migration. And this really could be a flashpoint in the next election. I think if he can get this right, then he's potentially going to boost his chances of winning re-election. If he gets it wrong, no chance at all.
Right, so he's got a reputation now, hasn't he, for under-promising and over-delivering. But I've seen Conservative MPs warning that this isn't workable and that he's in danger of over-promising and under-delivering. Now, when it comes down to the legal elements, actually he may not be successful, but in political terms, that's a totally different kettle of fish. If he's able to chime with the electorate, it could work.
It could work on that premise alone, Isabel, but I think the proof will be in the pudding. And, you know, you can say as much as you want and give tough words and talk tough, but when it comes to action, I think he will be judged on that. And it's a very tangible number that we look at. We had 45,000 crossings in the previous year. If that number is the same or higher over the next 12 months, then it doesn't spell that that's been workable for the Prime Minister. But he's got the headlines, he's talking tough, and he's trying to position himself in that way. But the legal complexities, I think, are a big barrier.
And do you think he's going to be able to do it based on what you've seen?
I think that Rishi Sunak has got a different approach to this than other Prime Ministers. And, you know, he is looking at it in a methodical way. He said he's going to push the law to its very limits. And that often can be a way of finding, a new breakthrough, which is obviously needed in this particular case. So he could well pull something out of the bag, but it won't be an easy task.
Okay.
But you think this is all being used to square up for the local elections and the oncoming general election as well. Suella Braverman saying we owe it to the British people to deliver. Labour and others who oppose these measures are betraying hard-working Brits. They don't have any answers themselves.
They've seen a clear difference between the Conservative Party and the Labour Party on this issue, Eamonn, and I think that this is a real passion point for a lot of voters, whether it's in the local elections or in the general election, as you say. And the small boats issue has been rumbling on and on and on for a number of years. And they're looking for a politician of any stripe to effectively get a grip on this. And the fact that the Labour Party are opposing the idea of, hard rhetoric and hard talk on illegal migration, I think creates that chasm between the two of them, and it is a difference between the two parties.
OK, gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed. We're going to be discussing this throughout the programme and obviously looking at what you have to say on all of this. Keep your views coming in. You can tweet us at GBNews and you can get in touch, and it's something which I can never remember.
At GBNews. But you know what, I'm just thinking, whilst we've got Leon, I actually want to pick your brains on one other story, and this is on the front of the Telegraph about Matt Hancock.
Yes.
This is terrible reading. The fact that he was suggesting an MP should have funds blocked for a disability centre in order to force him to toe the line on a COVID restriction. Oh, my goodness.
Well, yes, and, look, I don't find this terribly surprising because those of us who've worked in Westminster recognise this stuff goes on a lot, and politics is messy, it's not a pretty business. But the fact that it's all coming out now in the public, it just leaves a really sour taste in the mouth, and I think that this is just obviously the latest in a string of very embarrassing revelations for Matt Hancock, and it doesn't look good that you're dangling people's livelihoods in front of them for political gain.
Leon, what level of intelligence has Mr. Hancock got? I'm really interested because, he gets these. He's very clever.
Yeah,
Well, he obviously isn't very clever.
I think
to hand over 32,000 WhatsApp messages.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if anyone's entire log of WhatsApp messages were laid out in the public,
Yes.
it wouldn't be a good look for anyone.
Yeah.
So I do feel a degree of sympathy for him, albeit, you know, you're quite right, Eamonn, the judgment of handing over that backlog to a journalist who was fundamentally opposed to his views on lockdown and a number of other things maybe wasn't terribly wise. But look, Matt Hancock is a very astute politician. He got to, the pinnacle of the cabinet during a very difficult time for the country. But I think his reputation has taken a battering because of this, and also because of his repositioning into the world of showbiz, if you want to call it that. And I think that, you know, he is going to have to struggle to find a place for himself in British discourse over the coming next period.
Leon, thank you very much indeed. Time 6:15. The main news stacks up like this on this Tuesday morning.
Tributes have been paid on social media to 3 young people killed in a car crash that left 2 others seriously injured in Cardiff. Eve Smith, Darcy Ross and Raphael Jean died in the accident, whilst Sophie Rousson and Shane Loughlin remain in a critical condition. The car wasn't found until 2 days after the group went missing, despite being metres from a main road.
Unions representing NHS staff are to begin talks with the government aimed at averting more strikes. The negotiations will focus on pay for this year and next year for ambulance workers, physiotherapists, nurses and midwives.
A yellow weather warning for snow and ice is in place across large parts of the UK. The Met Office has issued alerts for the South, Midlands, North East, Northern and Eastern Scotland, South Wales and Northern Ireland until 10 a.m. Tonight is expected to be the coldest night of the year so far. Garden centre at the weekend, and I bought some pretty flowers for the garden, and now I'm panicking about the frost, so I'm going to have to, I don't know, bring them in. I was trying to get all spring-like, and I've got a beautiful camellia flowering outside my front door. It's my pride and joy, and it's going to get ruined tonight in the frost. I just know it.
What if you put a plastic bag over them?
I could do. I mean, that would look awful, but I could get some cling film. I actually had a friend...
Look, it's the difference between looking awful and being dead.
Yes, you're right. No, you're right. My friend had some beautiful early flowering wisteria on the front of her house, and she got a ladder and cling film the whole front of her flowers. Because they're so pretty. And I've been waiting...
fragile.
Yes. I've been waiting for them to bud, and I don't want them to die. Anyway, are you worried about the frost tonight, or are you excited? Some people love a bit of snow. Do you hate the cold?
Well, I ended up getting very cold last night. The windows were left open, and it wasn't me who left them open, but I had to. My lack of mobility meant I couldn't close them.
Oh, nightmare.
By nightmare, you're quite right. Do you like a fag?
No. No.
No, I know that.
Oh, right.
I was only rhetorically asking the question.
Did you like a fag?
Never in my life.
No.
Never in my life.
Okay.
No. Cancer research, and we were at a very good event yesterday for Cancer Research, a fundraiser. Cancer Research UK says putting an end to smoking could free up 75,000 GP appointments a month, OK? So, would you give up cigarettes to see a doctor?
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
6:20 is the time. Hello, good morning to you on this Tuesday. Eamonn and Isabel serving you up your breakfast.
The most delicious week of the year as the country celebrates British Pie Week. So pie makers, pubs and restaurants across the country are putting on special events and promotions to boost the popularity of pie.
And they are very popular indeed. Our very popular reporter, Anna Riley, went along to a pub in the North Yorkshire village of... Who on earth? Could you tell me? OK, I'll let the people at home. He went to the village of Huhnmunbee.
Maybe just not spell it phonetically.
Hunmunbee. I think I might... Yeah, Hunmunbee. Anyway, they sell 52 different types of pie. Yum, yum.
This is our availability board.
It's the North Yorkshire pub with a savoury pie for each week of the year. The Piebald Inn has a selection of 52 pies to choose from, and it's incredibly popular during Pie Week.
The pies, just as a theme, are named after horse breeds, so the stable, restaurant, horses, and it's just getting busier and busier and busier. It's just... Pie seems to be popular. Everybody likes a pie. It's good, wholesome food. Nobody goes home hungry, that is for sure. I mean, we do other things as well as pie, but pies, everybody likes a pie. I mean, they're on most people's menus. It's just that we've gone a little bit overboard and got 52 of them, and very, very different they are, you know, from beef, lamb, chicken, pork, game, fish, vegetarian. We've got some that can be cooked to suit a vegan diet. There's all sorts, something for everybody in there. We're making pies every week of the year, so, you know, the only day we don't serve pies is Christmas Day, when we are open, but we serve a full traditional Christmas lunch.
All the pies are made from start to finish in the kitchen, with ingredients sourced locally, and there's something for everyone to try.
We make absolutely everything from scratch. We get the raw ingredients in. We work on the balance of flavours when we're making the mixes, and then of course we hand roll the pies, and we always will. Some of our chicken pies are, again, some are traditional, some are as way out as a Thai green curry in a pie.
The pies draw customers in from near and far, with people travelling across Britain to sample the menu.
It's put Hunmunbee on the map. You know, it's a destination that people are coming from all over the country, and it's word-of-mouth recommendation is we get a load of returning customers, especially with the camps and people holiday in the area. Many people come and say, "Oh, we've been recommended from." They could be from Coventry, they could be from Manchester, Scotland. We've had them. Very popular.
Every week is Pie Week here at the Piebald Inn, and with such an extensive menu of pies, the pub certainly does justice to the great British dish. Anna Riley, GB News, Hunmunbee.
Oh, she's having...
We just stopped it at the good bit.
Yeah, we need to see that. Well, look, Jonathan from Newry, he says, I love an all-delicious Northern Ireland shepherd's pie. I'm actually watching from Toronto in Canada. I miss the home-cooked cottage pie too.
And where is he from originally?
Newry?
Newry.
OK. Spelt Newry. I don't know. But what's special about a shepherd's pie in Northern Ireland?
No idea.
Oh, right.
Probably got alcohol in it, I would say. That's the difference. Yes, pies, OK. Let us let us know about pies. Sometimes you can do sausage meat nice, and you can do chorizo and like...
Oh, yeah, chorizo goes in anything.
Yeah. No, basically, I can't think of a bad pie.
Steak and kidney's not for me.
It's not?
Kidney.
No.
Anyway, let us know your favourite pie, and also let us know your thoughts about this. We'll be discussing Boris Johnson putting his own dad forward for a knighthood. What do Leo Kearse and Emma Burnell think? We'll be going through the papers with them in a moment.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, The People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
At this time, 26 minutes past 6, we'll look at the front pages, and here's how they stack up on this Tuesday morning.
The Sun leading with the Prime Minister's border bill vow to take back control as he moves to ban small boat migrants. He's written inside that paper today.
Here's the Express. At Home reports on the Home Secretary's jibe to Labour. Back law to stop boats or betray Britain, it says. Is it all talk and no action?
Yeah, she's written for them as well, so they're all out this morning. And the Mirror is leading with Boris Johnson putting his dad, Stanley, up for a potential knighthood. We'll be talking about that in just a moment.
The Mail, it's got a photograph of one of the Cardiff crash victims and questions the time it took for police to find the car with 3 dead young people inside.
OK, joining us to go through the papers this morning in some more detail, we have the comedian Leo Kearse and the political consultant Emma Burnell. Very warm welcome to both of you. Leo, let's start, shall we, with the Daily Telegraph and their latest drop. This one, which, you know, we were just talking to Leon Emirali a moment ago, saying most people in politics know that these things go on, but it doesn't make good reading.
Yeah, so these are more leaks from Matt Hancock's WhatsApp chats. And I think we'd all be in trouble if our WhatsApp chats were leaked. You know, there should be some sort of omerta. But unfortunately, he gave his WhatsApp, full access to his WhatsApp to Isabel Oakeshott, who's a journalist who's previously, you know, revealed all sorts of unpleasant truths about David Cameron in an unauthorised biography. So, yeah, Matt Hancock really sort of took a gamble there, and it didn't pay off. But this particular leak relates to one of the lockdown rules that Matt Hancock was going to bring in about tiers or whatever, you know, a ridiculous authoritarian rule that wasn't actually going to help us in any way but take away our freedoms. So 95 Tory MPs were going to vote against this particular rule around the tiers. So he was looking for ways to sort of leverage them into line to voting with them. So he threatened, or he suggested, discussed with one of his aides, removing funding for a disability hub in Bury, which seems like pretty mean. He's taken away funding for, you know, especially considering he entered I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. He said he was going to raise awareness for disabled kids and dyslexia. Meanwhile, he's on WhatsApp saying, how can we take money away from these people? You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we know that this is how politics happens, but you know, to see it on the front pages instead of it being hidden away in a WhatsApp group is, you know, it's quite galling.
Emma, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely appalling.
And yeah, there is a certain amount of what's called pork barrel politics that we know always goes on. We'll put a bit more money in your constituency there, we'll take a bit of money out of your constituency there. But it would usually be for like a leisure centre or something like that. A disability learning hub, particularly at a time where those kids would have been in real, they would have been without the support that they were used to, in real kind of distress. It's exactly the sort of thing that we should have been and should always be investing in, and it absolutely should not have been made.
Well, I think it launches them on a whole new career path, and that is as a panto villain for years to come, because anybody that comes up with something like that deserves the boos and the hisses and everything that goes with it. Right, Emma, The Guardian front page, anger after it takes 46 hours to find the car wreck in Cardiff.
Yeah, this is a story that's really quite worrying. There were 5 people in this car, and 3 died and 2 lived, but they weren't found for so long, and the families are really angry at the lack of action from the police. And the way that the police have completely failed.
But Emma, could I just say, I mean, in defence of the police, the car was hidden. It was off the road. It goes into this COPSE, COPSE, and it's buried. And you can see the aerial picture. You can see the aerial picture there.
You can. That's not a massive amount of trees to be hidden in. I think if it were clear something had happened, they could have probably found it slightly quicker than 46 hours. We are not... That's a built-up area. It's a big road, a big roundabout. People would have seen something.
Well, the question, I suppose, is would the outcomes have been different if they had got there more quickly? 2 of the people in that car were actually still alive, whilst 3 people had deceased. How traumatic for those...
Absolutely.
For those 2
I mean, that's going to be with them forever.
Yeah. And the mother of one of the young people in there said she drove round that roundabout 3 times, not knowing that her child was in the trees in that car. It was actually this time yesterday we were breaking the story on GB News. There have to be questions for the police, but as Eamonn says, they can't win, can they?
I mean,
it was 2 a.m. in the morning, and as you say, it is a built-up area. But surely, would anybody else have seen what went on? I don't know. It's a terrible.
There always need to be these questions asked. The police can't act with impunity. If you've lost your family, you have every right to ask these questions.
Yeah.
I hope that they ask them properly and fully, and that the police are open to investigating this sensibly.
I'm just amazed that the police turned up to an incident. This is... normally if you report a burglary or somebody's broken into your car, you just you phone up and you get given a crime reference number instead of, unless, a Quran's been scuffed or somebody's done a transphobic tweet. I mean, maybe if somebody in the car had been misgendered, the police would have scrambled all units. But apparently it wasn't even found by the police. It was found, members of the public have said that they found it when they were doing their public searches.
Yeah.
So sad, so sad. We go to the front page of the Financial Times. Speaker McCarthy to meet Taiwan's leader in America to avert Beijing backlash. Right, translate that one for us, Leo.
So Nancy Pelosi, I think she's the House Speaker in America. So she went to Taiwan and met the Taiwanese president on his ground, which provoked China into sending all these missiles over Taiwanese territory and sort of saber rattling. So now the Taiwan's leader Tsai Ing-wen has told the new speaker to meet in California instead of in Taiwan to not provoke China. But I think China threatens the West, threatens Taiwan. I think China's a long way away from actually being able to do anything. I think the war in Ukraine has made China realise, actually invading smaller countries isn't always that easy. So, and Taiwan being an island state is going to make it more difficult as well. And also China's facing an economic collapse and a population collapse. So I'm not sure if it'll ever get to the point where it'll be able to take over Taiwan.
Well, I'm not sure many people would feel so confident in that view. Obviously, we've seen what's happened in Hong Kong recently, and I think the fact that Taiwan is an island actually makes it particularly vulnerable to attack.
It's harder to attack across the sea.
Tanks don't do well in water.
They don't. And I think that the international situation has changed due to what's happened in Ukraine and the fact that the international community have been fairly solidly behind the Ukrainian people. And I think China has probably seen that. China's
come out very recently and had to have Anthony Blinken make threats from, the United States Secretary of State, because the Chinese were contemplating funding the war machine in Russia at this stage in the war.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, China is not a good actor. No one is claiming that they are. What I think they might be is for many of the reasons that Leo outlined, they are having economic difficulties. They've been, Xi Jinping, who is their leader there, has basically got a complete lock on everything. But you are seeing more political dissent in China than we've seen for an awfully long time, probably since the Tiananmen Square massacre. So I think that there are... A lot of this will be about internal US politics and internal Chinese politics. And so there's a diplomacy story going on underneath this. But actually, this is essentially... China's sabre rattling must be Tuesday,
It'd be nice to see China invade Scotland instead, so that Scotland could get a slightly less authoritarian government.
Right. The geopolitical map, if you could see the geopolitical map, Leo, of the South China Seas and whatever it is, there's no chance China invading Taiwan. America is occupying most of those islands all around there. It's absolutely incredible.
But we've got to see if the political will remains in America to defend Taiwan.
Yeah, you're right. That's a whole other ball game, isn't it? Right, let's go to the eye. OK, this is the plan by the Prime Minister, which will be announced today, to stop Channel migrants.
Yeah, apparently Tories are already warning that this might be completely unworkable. Which isn't a great start for the Prime Minister's, one of his 5 flagship missions, if they're already saying, yeah, that's probably not going to work, mate. Again, this is an internal politics of the Conservative Party issue. There is I would say, a cross-party consensus that something has to be done. There is significant differences about what that something is, how we treat migrants, how we treat people seeking asylum. But I think that the boats images and the deaths that we've seen in the English Channel affect everybody, and everybody is concerned that something should be done. The problem is if Sunak tries to force something through and it doesn't work, that weakens him even further.
Yeah, I mean, he's staked his reputation on it, hasn't he, by saying that he wants to halve those numbers by the end of the year. We'll just have to see whether or not this works. Leo, you want to talk about Boris Johnson and his father, the Star coming up with the headline, The Gong Father, with some pretty funny pictures to accompany it. I don't know if we've got that headline, but you can see, I think it's Rishi Sunak's claw on his shoulder. I don't know if we've got the picture, but tell us more.
So Boris wants 100 knighthoods, apparently, for cronies, and also his dad. I mean, why not start dishing them out? Saves a Christmas present, I suppose. Get a knighthood for everyone in the family. So his dad, Stanley, is possibly going to be knighted as a result of Boris's demands. Stanley is a French citizen, by the way. I don't know why we're starting to knight people in other countries. But yeah, that's the story.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I read it in the Star, so I don't know how true it is.
I think he's definitely got a French house, and he lives there most of the year, as far as I'm aware.
I thought he had one in Greece as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they are
He lives in the Quantocks,
rich.
I think, though, doesn't he? In the West Country most of the time. And out near Minehead.
But he does. I mean, I believe
that he has options.
He's got options. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's just yet again Boris being the most unhelpful former Prime Minister that you could possibly have.
Well, look, it doesn't really matter whether Stanley Johnson's entitled to an honour or not. The thing about honours is, do you have an honour?
I do not have an honour.
Do you have an honour? No.
I have no
Do you have an honour?
Eamonn, I have no honour.
The thing is about honours, as soon as somebody gets them, people object because they're jealous, right? People are jealous at the end of the day. Look, please, don't go, please.
Who got given an honour by Her Majesty the Queen.
Please.
Oh, you know what I can't stand? When people hand back their honours years after accepting them. So they had all the fun of getting the honour, and then years later they get to get all this fame and glory from handing it back. If you're such a noble, anti-establishment, anti-empire person, you wouldn't have accepted it in the first place.
Yeah. My only embarrassment is getting something that is graded higher than when you hear other people. I got a very high honour, I'll not go into it, but
you don't like to talk about it, right?
I don't like to talk about it. But you see people who do much more worthy and honourable things getting much less reward. I don't know, my own uncle who defused limpet mines of the sides of British warships in the Second World War. He got a BEM for risking his life, you know, so I'm like 3 or 4 stages ahead of him, and I always look at it and think, yeah.
I mean, the honours system itself is quite bizarre. And seems to be a bit of a lottery. But I think particularly these resignation honours, you've been forced out of being Prime Minister because you've been so scandal-ridden. And what is your punishment? You get to knight a bunch of people.
It wasn't even a resignation, really, was it?
No.
He was forced out.
He was forced out. And the other thing is, of course, now we've got Boris's list, we've still got Liz Truss's to come.
No.
Yep, I mean, she's entitled to it too, yeah. Sadly, I mean, you only have to be Prime Minister for 5 seconds.
I thought she was great for the 30 days she was leader.
She was certainly great for my side.
She gave you plenty of material, I'm sure, for headliners. I don't know why we're finishing on this. This is a bit bad. In the Times front page, what is it on Wayne Couzens? Have you got the Times there? Didn't see the Times.
Hiding.
No, hiding. Here it is. So it's the front page of the Times. We could have arrested the PC before he killed Sarah Everard, says the Times.
Yeah, he was not once but twice, I believe, found flashing at a drive-through McDonald's. He drove through stark naked and touching himself inappropriately.
Yeah.
The police were called and they did nothing. And
they just didn't take this seriously.
They didn't take it seriously at all. And I think we really need to be conscious that flashing is quite often a precursor to much further crimes. And it's also, as somebody who was flashed as a child, I can tell you, I've never forgotten it.
Yeah, me too.
I've never forgotten
many times.
And it is so psychologically upsetting. And I mean, I was 8 when it first happened to me. It's just horrendous.
See, the thing that
we just think it's a joke. Oh, you know, a dirty Mac and all of that. It's not a joke.
Yeah. But did you report it when you were 8?
We reported it, bizarrely, we reported it to some people working on the road because they were in uniform. We were 8 years old. They were the only people we could see around us, so we thought they might help us, and bless them, they did, and chased him off. But that was as far as it went.
Yeah. It just absolutely horrifies me, the amount of women who have a tale to tell when they were young and being flashed at, and this sort of indecent exposure. And I think it boils down to that thing, Isabel, that it just doesn't seem to be taken seriously enough.
Well, when I was a child, I used to catch the train to school, and I was flashed on the way to school. And we, as little girls, we didn't know how else to react. We did giggle and laugh, and didn't take it seriously. As an adult, more recently, I was holding hands with my then 3-year-old daughter near where I live, and we were flashed, just the two of us, in an alleyway. And I called the police, and they came instantly, to be fair. They came straight away, and they handled it very well. So I do hope that whoever handled these calls in relation to Wayne Couzens is facing some kind of disciplinary action.
Well, you'd hope so. And you wonder if it wasn't just them protecting their own, you know...
Well, they knew who he was.
Yeah, because he was in his own car.
His nickname apparently was the Rapist.
The Rapist,
which surely, I mean, that's, you know, if we're talking about red flags, that's got to be a bit of a red flag.
Mm-hmm. You think so? Do you know what gets me, Leo, as well? These guys who are flashing to 8-year-old girls, whenever, what are they getting out of it? I mean, especially if you, as a youngster, you're laughing back at it. What is the power that they get out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it.
I think it is a power trip. I think that's what it is. It's sexually titillating to them to have that power imbalance, and that's why it's young girls like that.
Well, also the judge yesterday was saying that it builds confidence, and seeing the reaction and the lack of recourse, then that he felt emboldened to then carry out more horrific crimes. So that's perhaps why they start doing it, Eamonn, because they start leading to other things.
Yeah,
awful. It has to be taken very seriously, I think.
Yeah, really good.
It's National Pie Week.
Yay!
Either of you fans of pies?
Yeah, I like pies.
What's your favourite?
Steak and kidney.
Do you?
Yeah, I like steak and kidney.
A good traditional bit of suet in the crust as well. Gravy or no gravy?
It's got to have gravy, otherwise it's just meat in a pastry case.
Yeah.
Got some gravy in there.
Okay.
I do. I mean, I'm as I said to you in the break, I am permanently on a diet because I did eat all the pies. But I do like a pie when I have a treat. When I'm off the diet for my birthday or something, you have a nice treat. You can't beat a good chicken and mushroom pie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a good one. Or a bit of bacon in there as well. Actually, it's interesting talking about bacon. The return of the fry-up as Brits ditch trendy continental breakfast, according to a new poll. I don't know if this is to do with food inflation or something, but apparently a third of those polled are eating more scrambled eggs, sausages, beans and bacon, whilst smashed avocado and croissants are being ditched.
Well, do you know what? I bet you, I haven't read through this, but I bet you if they're eating it, they're buying it as opposed to
going to a
making
greasy
it.
Spoon.
Yeah, I think they're going to a greasy spoon rather than making it themselves, because I don't know about you, Leo, I don't mind eating anything. I'm up for eating most things, but it's the dishes that get me. It's the mess that created.
And also, I've noticed greasy spoon cafes are using much higher quality sausages than they used to. The sausages are amazing. They used to use, the sausages that you get like 100 for £1 in Iceland, and now they're using genuine. It's got actual meat in it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Look, they say most people wash down a fry-up with a cuppa. That's what you do. I see your posts on social media every Sunday morning. You have your fry-up and then you have your cup of tea.
I wouldn't drink coffee with it.
No, but I mean, you don't drink tea apart from if you're eating...
I can't drink tea. I literally have this phobia that I can't drink tea on its own. I have to have a biscuit with it, a sandwich with it, or something.
That's not a phobia. That's
a preference.
That's an eating disorder.
That's a preference.
Well, I have it. I have it.
Well, I have the worst confession to make as a Brit. I don't drink tea. I don't like it.
Really?
Yeah.
My husband doesn't drink any hot drinks, and I find that is a real problem in our relationship because it's such a bond, isn't it? You wake up and you make a cup of coffee together, or you go to a coffee shop together, or you're sitting watching the kids at football, you have a coffee. He's just not interested, and I'm really disappointed.
But you're an addict.
I am.
You are addicted to that caffeine thing.
Well, that's the only way
people
to
who wake
burn
up,
off the
people who wake
hangover.
up and they go, I'm dying for a cuppa. Oh, I'm dying for a cuppa. I've never had that feeling in my life.
Oh, I love it.
I've been dying for a Mars bar, but I haven't been.
Deep fried, I hope.
I've never had a deep fried Mars bar.
It's the best way to cook them. Definitely don't steam them. If you go on a diet, don't try steaming Mars bars. It doesn't work the same. But apparently the reason we have milk in tea in the UK, which other countries don't tend to do, is because during the Industrial Revolution, there were rules that said that workers had to have a tea break, and the factory bosses realised that if they put milk in the tea, it cooled it down, and people would finish their tea faster and get back to the looms.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lord.
Very good.
What a great fact.
Well, very good fact. And if you're going to have a fry, black pudding, but not... People have neglected to mention white pudding, which is a wonderful... I don't know what's in white pudding,
What's in white pudding? Bone, maybe, because black pudding's all blood.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just assuming it's something grim. I'm not a fan of black pudding.
I like
I tell you, I like the Scottish fry-up, the square sausage.
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
Love that.
It fits inside the boundaries
Yeah,
of the
it's
bread.
perfect.
Yeah,
What do they call that?
Just square sausage.
Oh.
We're not an imaginative people.
Tatty. That's great. I thought it would have some...
Leo and Emma, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. The guys are going to be back in about 45 minutes' time. We look forward to that. Thank you. Thank you both very much indeed. The time, 13 minutes now before 7.
Let's bring you up to date with today's top stories. And as we've been discussing this morning, the Home Secretary's new proposed laws to tackle small boat crossings will, as she says, push the boundaries of international law. The government is set to unveil new legislation to remove and ban illegal migrants from ever returning to the UK. The Prime Minister says the new bill will take back control of UK borders.
Unions representing NHS staff are to begin talks with the government aimed at averting more strikes. The negotiations will focus on pay for this year and next year, and this will include ambulance workers, physiotherapists, nurses and midwives.
Matt Hancock discussed withholding funding for a learning disability hub to pressure an MP into not rebelling against COVID restrictions, leaked messages suggest. The former Health Secretary and an aide spoke about warning MP James Daly that the Disability Centre would be off the table if he voted against the government, according to the Telegraph. Mr Hancock's team denied the allegation.
A yellow weather warning for snow and ice is in place across large parts of the country. The Met Office has issued alerts for the South, Midlands, North East, Northern and eastern Scotland, South Wales and Northern Ireland. I would say that's sort of everywhere.
Yes.
Until 10 a.m. Tonight expected to be the coldest night of the year so far. So wrap up.
OK, it's a really big day in Westminster, and I suppose you could argue a big day for Britain. It is our top story this morning as well, and as we have been discussing, the Prime Minister has vowed to take back control of the country's borders once and for all as the government is preparing to announce a major crackdown on illegal migration. Now, earlier on this very programme, we spoke to human rights lawyer Harjit Singh Bangal, who said this plan, well, he said it's unworkable, really.
Considering the fact that the Rwanda plan has delivered 0 deportations, and in a Home Office leaked document on Sunday, the Home Office admit that it will not get a flight out before March 2024, and that's despite their recent win in the courts. So it's not really workable. We're looking at mass detentions. Where are we going to detain these people? On what level? Are you talking about detaining 50,000 people? And the key to this is you can't just send people back to countries. Countries have got to be willing to accept them. We've only got return agreements with 6 to 7 countries. That's because at the time when Brexit happened, we should have negotiated maybe return agreements with 200 countries. But in all of our wisdom, we failed to do that. So the 6 or 7 countries are not going to agree to take.
What countries are you talking about? The countries of origin?
Albania is one of them. I think Serbia is another country.
Where the people are originating from?
With any countries across the world.
The majority
in
of them are
total.
coming from Albania at the moment, aren't they? So that works well to have one of those as the countries that's returning people.
But the others that are coming, say from Iraq and Syria, or from say India or Pakistan, we don't really have agreements with countries to send people to wherever they come from.
Why would countries want to accept refugees?
Well, they have to accept their people if they've been refused asylum. They should accept, but they can just deny it. You need an agreement in place. Our nearest neighbours, France, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, have all said no. But they said 2 years ago, sorry, we're not signing any return agreements with you. We're not going to have your failed asylum seekers. You can't dump them here.
But you see, it's often forgotten that these countries have probably bigger migrant problems than we have.
Yeah, they take on the majority, so they take on in millions. So Germany take on something about 2.2 million.
Yeah.
And actually the biggest countries who take on refugees are Colombia and Pakistan.
Really?
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that because you don't hear them go on about it, but they do. They take on a lot more than even Germany.
Well, Harjit, we're expecting it to be a really big set piece from the Prime Minister and from Suella Braverman. We're expected to see a lot of upset from, I suppose, the left, you could say, a lot of human rights lawyers like yourself as well. And we're going to hear lots of technicalities. And I've been reading this morning, and bear with me at home if you're watching, about a section 19.1b. Now, all of us this morning were saying, what is this? I've no idea what a section 19.1b, but this is what Rishi Sunak's going to be relying on. And as is described in Suella Braverman's own words, is pushing the boundaries of international law. So what does it mean as a human rights lawyer?
Well, in layman's, let's explain it in layman's terms. What we're going to say is, if you land here on a small boat, we're not even going to process your claim. We're going to send you back to Rwanda or send you back to another country. Now, the problem is Rwanda only has 200 places. Initially, there were 500, if you remember, and then they turned around and said, no, sorry, we've only got 200 places.
So we're talking about tens of thousands of people coming in, 200 places.
In Rwanda, which we've spent 140 million on and which we've sent back no one. Right, so that's the first thing. Secondly, there are no other countries. There's about 6 other countries with who we've got agreements to send people. You can't send asylum seekers back to their country of origin because that's illegal, because then, you literally might be sending them to their death. Yeah, right. So what is going to happen here, you can't say in breach of a convention that we can't consider your claim. In the Rwanda case, the High Court was very specific. That's the High Court of this country, not of Europe. They said that you have to consider everyone's claim individually before you make a decision whether you can send them to Rwanda. Now, what we're saying, and what Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak are going to say, we're going to use an inadmissibility law, which has already been in since 2021, to say, no, sorry, you can't enter the country, you have to go elsewhere. That since 2021, since it's been brought in, we've only sent back 21 people under it. That tells you how successful it's been in 2 years.
And unsurprisingly, lots of you having your say this morning. Jay says talk and no action for years. The debt from COVID will be a drop in the ocean compared to this long-running crisis. Hopefully there is an end to COVID lockdowns, but this will never end.
So I just want to bring you up to date. Yesterday on the programme we were talking about the public parole board hearing for the prisoner Charles Salvador. He is now Charles Bronson. You'd know him best as. He's 70 years of age, and he said in his defence that he would have a cup of tea and a cake with Ira Peterson, who's 95, if he was freed after nearly 50 years behind bars. So this is his mother, right? So he said, my mother, the old Duchess, is 95. She isn't in the best of health, and you people have got the power to let me out. And that's my mum's last dream on this planet, to see her son outside making a good, honest living. So, you know, keep your views coming in. So that parole hearing goes on, I think, for a few days, and we'll keep you posted as that goes on.
We've also been talking about pies.
Yes, we are.
Mike in Newport says many pubs, restaurants, cafes sell a casserole dish full of stew with a ridiculous layer of flaky pastry on top. This is not a pie. A real pie has the filling completely encased in pastry. I have to agree. That's a proper pie.
John in Putney says you can't beat a Mr. Kipling's mince pie.
Oh, of course, that's technically pies, aren't they? Well, that's got the pastry underneath, so...
Yeah, so it's not mince as in meat, it's mince as in fruit.
Christmas, yeah, Christmas mince pie.
I would
Anyway,
eat mince pies all year round, says John. I'd like to see a picture of you, John. That'll be interesting.
Stay with us. We'll have more on the PM's pledge to take back control of the country's borders once and for all. But first, is snow on the way? Let's find out with Greg Dewhurst.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst. Welcome to your latest broadcast from the Met Office. A cold, icy day to come for many of us today. There will be sunny spells, but also the risk of snow. So icy stretches from the word go. The reason for this is we've got northerly winds across the UK coming down from the Arctic at the moment. At the same time, weather systems trying to move in from the Atlantic, increasing the risk of some rain, sleet and snow to southern counties of England and Wales at times. And we've got some of that this morning across southern counties here, perhaps some slushy deposits in places, some icy stretches elsewhere. Plenty of sunny spells stretching up into northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland, but some heavy snow showers too. Met Office warning those snow showers right through the day, perhaps up to 10 centimetres over the higher ground. In between, though, largely dry, sunny spells. Temperatures, though, for everyone below average today. We'll see highs of just 2 to 6 degrees across the whole of the country. Into the evening time, still the risk of some rain, sleet and snow across southern counties of England. Elsewhere, under clearing skies, temperatures are going to quickly fall below freezing. Still some snow showers moving into parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, down the east coast of England too, leading to some icy stretches. In the early hours, we can still see rain, sleet and snow in the far south of England, perhaps stretching into Wales too. Temperatures well below freezing, perhaps minus 10 to 15 across the glens of Scotland to start Wednesday morning. Icy stretches to start the day, so do take care if you're heading out over the next few mornings. Into the afternoon, we'll see the frost slowly lift. Plenty of sunshine for many. Snow showers becoming fewer across northern and eastern Scotland, northeast England, but still the risk of some rain, sleet and snow affecting southern parts of England into Wales. A cold feeling day, perhaps just something milder creeping into the far southwest later on as the winds pick up here. So over the next few days, there's a lot going on with the weather. It stays unsettled, further rain, sleet and snow at times. Just something a little milder coming into the far south as we head towards the weekend. See you again soon.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Prime Minister vows to take back control once and for all as he prepares to unveil the biggest crackdown on illegal migration in decades.
Hello there, very good to see you. The time is 7 o'clock on this Tuesday, the 7th of March. You tuned into breakfast on GB News, online, on TV, on your radio with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Home Secretary's promised to push the boundaries of international law as she prepares to unveil new legislation to stop small boat crossings. The measures will be rushed through Parliament today and could be in place by summer.
Matt Hancock has discussed a plan to block funding for a new disabled children's centre as a way to get an MP to back new pandemic restrictions. The latest messages released by the Telegraph newspaper were sent ahead of a vote on a tougher local COVID tier system.
The Met Office has extended snow and ice warnings for much of the country as forecasters warn a major change is underway. Arctic air sweeping in from the north is expected to cause significant disruption with difficult travel conditions throughout the week.
And they're plugging the talent gap. We'll meet the female plumbers, transforming the industry and encouraging other women to join them. You see, having a trade, I'm always envious of someone who has a trade, someone who's useful.
Yeah.
See that? See those hands?
You're a bit rubbish at these things.
Never done a day's work in their life, and I am
This is the
profoundly
money maker.
ashamed. Well, it was nice of you to realise that my face is my fortune there. But you know, to have a skill. I mean, I watch all the programmes about restoring cars and tinkering with car engines. Wouldn't have a clue.
But do you know what I love about that is seeing women do it, because you know I'm like you, not a practical bone in my body, and I always just thought it was because I'm a girl. But turns out lots of women really want to do things like plumbing, and they're just not getting the steps they need to do it.
So
we're
what would you
breaking
like?
down boundaries, and it's good to see girls.
Would you
do
like
it
to
as well.
take out a big plunger and
No, I don't
work
want to do
all
it.
You don't want to do it at all?
But I'm happy for my girlfriends that do, that if they want to, they can do it.
Yeah, okay. Well,
You can do it too.
What do you do? What unusual skill do you have, or what we say unusual skill? It shouldn't be an unusual skill. It's better having a trade as a profession than going off to third-level education. I think coming back with something that qualifies you for nothing. Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews.
OK, it is our top story this morning. The Prime Minister has vowed to take back control of the country's borders once and for all as the government's preparing to announce a major crackdown on illegal migration.
But as our Home and Security editor Mark White now reports, despite Suella Braverman's pledge to push the boundaries of international law, critics believe it'll be bogged down in legal challenges.
On wasteland near Calais, another migrant camp has sprung up. Hundreds of tents and other makeshift structures have been erected, offering shelter to those planning to cross illegally to the UK in the days and weeks ahead. Further up the coast, the area's largest camp along the railway tracks near Dunkirk has now been cleared. Evidence that authorities here are certainly trying to disperse those planning to cross the Channel. On the UK side, the government is also stepping up the pressure. New legislation, which we're told will make claiming asylum all but impossible for those entering the UK illegally, and will include a lifetime ban on claiming asylum.
Any policies that we put in place now are not some ideological or intellectual exercise. They are practical steps that's going to allow the Home Office to hopefully get their act together and to work with the democratically elected politicians to act upon what people actually want them to do.
After months of construction work, miles of security fencing is now in place around the beaches at Gravely near Dunkirk, the site of many of the small boat launches. But in recent weeks, people smugglers have simply moved location. And many are sceptical that new legislation will make any real difference in managing a crisis that saw more than 45,000 people cross the Channel in flimsy inflatables last year.
The returns agreements are the nub on which the entire policy lands, and if that fails, if there aren't places to send all of these illegal immigrants that the government is planning to detain, then it will all fall apart and it will all be for naught. So that's a very important bit of the plan.
It's almost a year since then Prime Minister Boris Johnson made bold predictions about the government's new plan to send many asylum seekers to Rwanda. Since then, not a single flight has taken off for that country. However determined Rishi Sunak may be to ensure his plan has more success, it's certain there will be no end of challenges from those determined to block the government's latest proposals.
OK, that was Mark's report. We go to him live outside the Home Office this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Morning.
So bring us up to date as to how you see things this morning.
Well, this is clearly, as far as the government is concerned, a top priority. They know that this is a massive electoral issue, that the voters that may well be voting Conservative at the upcoming local elections, or indeed the forthcoming general election, wherever that might be, will have immigration uppermost in their mind. There's a great deal of disquiet across the country, with many hundreds of hotels being requisitioned to house these asylum seekers. So the government wants to step up the pressure by making it effectively illegal or barring those who cross by irregular routes from claiming asylum, and ensuring that they get moved out of the country as soon as practically possible. But you know, how soon is practically possible? You know, they are probably going to have to move from a model of putting people in hotels, because obviously in hotels at the moment, the people have an incentive to stay there, knowing that their asylum applications are being processed. But if they're effectively being told, well, you're not eligible for asylum anymore, and it's just a matter of time before we remove you, then the chances are that many of those in hotels may seek to leave the hotels and enter the black economy instead. So I think what we may have to be looking at in the months ahead is the erection of actual detention centres, large-scale detention centres that can house thousands of people at a time, and for very significant periods of time, while they deal with the inevitable backlog of legal challenges against decisions to try to move these asylum seekers.
Mark, thank you very much indeed for explaining all of that, and I know we'll be with you throughout the course of the day. Now, if you thought you'd seen the last of Matt Hancock's 100,000 WhatsApp messages, we've got bad news for you. Texts from late 2020 revealed that the former Health Secretary threatened to withhold funding of a disabled children's centre from a rebellious Tory MP. It came ahead of a vote in which the government wanted to introduce a toughened local COVID tier system for England, to which Red Wall MP James Daly was opposed. We're joined now by political analyst Leon Emirali for more on this. The optics of that no matter which way you cut it, are absolutely terrible for the government and for Matt Hancock.
Yeah, I think it is. And, you know, those of us who've worked in Westminster, we know this type of stuff goes on, but it isn't the type of thing that's meant to be seen by the public. I think the public want to get an understanding that actually our politicians are doing things in the right way, in the proper way, evaluating schemes for investment or schemes for new buildings, whatever it might be, on their merit rather than on the political gain that they can give any particular minister. And I just think it doesn't leave a particularly good taste in the mouth.
Well, not least as people have pointed out to us on this show this morning that during COVID, it was often children from disadvantaged backgrounds or perhaps with disabilities who were suffering the most. And to hear that in these instances, those people would have been affected, it is particularly abhorrent, I think. Questions about Matt Hancock's judgment, once again. Is there any recourse for this? I mean, does the Prime Minister need to do anything to speak out? I mean, can he involve the Information Commissioner, for example?
Well, I know, you know, obviously Matt Hancock's looking at this from a legal perspective personally, but I think for the government, you know, I don't really know what's in their powers. There's not a great deal they can do. There is clearly an element of a public interest argument here, which is what Isabel, the journalist who released these text messages, is saying. And although it's embarrassing for Matt Hancock, I do think that there's a lot of revelations that are coming out that actually the public are interested in and is important, because when we consider in the thick of it during the pandemic, you know, these huge decisions being taken that affected everyone's lives in a massive way, we want to know how those decisions were made. And I think that's what's the most striking thing about these text messages, is the way in which those decisions were made.
And some of the people that have been exposed in an unfavourable light still at the heart of government. At the front of the Telegraph, for example, Fraser Nelson's talking about Simon Case and how he oversaw a shambles and deserves his full share of the blame. I mean, that's a difficult one for Rishi Sunak.
It is, and I think Simon Case is going to be considering his position quite intensely. It's on the front page of the FT as well, talking about him maybe moving on quicker than he was anticipating. And I think that there are some individuals that come off looking worse for wear than others. I actually think Boris Johnson is coming off quite well in these text messages. He's considering thoughtfully what, you know, the impact of lockdown would be on people's mental health, on the economy, and other factors. So I think he's coming off quite well. But Simon Case certainly isn't, and obviously Matt Hancock and his advisors are left their reputations in the mud.
Whilst I've got you, I have to get your take on today's big policy announcements. We know that the Prime Minister is staking his political reputation on this. He had big success with the Windsor Framework last week. Can he do the same of under-promising, over-delivering?
Yes, and that's what we'll be hoping for, Isabel.
Yeah.
But Rishi Sunak has created this sort of narrative that he's this management consultant almost, this problem solver who's getting to grips with some of the biggest issues we face as a country. He did tidied up the loose ends on Brexit. That went very well. This is slightly different, and it's a lot more difficult because there is a lot of legislation wrapped up in it. There's a lot of political contention wrapped up in it as well. And it's a key issue for a lot of voters on the doorstep to solve the issue of illegal immigration. So I think he has to get this right. And if he gets it wrong, as you say, the stakes are very high indeed.
Yeah, and he understands, as you say, how passionately people, actually probably across the board, whether they're left or right, really don't want to see their own, public services like hospitals being swamped by huge numbers of people coming in illegally. And yet, as you say, it's a tangible thing. You'll be able to see by the end of the year whether or not he's achieved what he set out to do.
Absolutely. There's no hiding around here. As much political spin as you want to put on it, there is a cold, hard number at the end of the day. We've currently got 45,000 or so crossings over the past year. If that number is higher or around the same over the next year, then Rishi Sunak will be judged on that, and the proof will be in his delivery of this.
There will be people, Nigel Farage, I'm sure, will say this, lots of emails coming in as well today. As long as we're in the European Convention of Human Rights, this isn't going to be solved. What do you think about that?
Well, I think what Rishi Sunak is doing and what Suella Braverman is laying out is that we're actually, or they are going to be pushing the very boundaries of the law and what we are bound to by the European Court of Human Rights. So I think if they can find a loophole or they can find the law to work in their favour, then it doesn't become too much of an issue.
Does that worry you? I mean, finding a loophole on human rights or, you know, in terms of our international reputation, which there will be wings of the right of the party who are still concerned with those sorts of things.
Yeah, they are, but the law is the law, Isabel, and I think that if you're able to use it to your advantage, then that's up to you. And I think that ultimately that's what they're going to be trying to do here, is be clever about how they deliver on this. And as you say, it would be a lot easier just to withdraw, which I would have issues with. And I think that the European Court of Human Rights, for all its faults, is an important staple of what we do in this country and across Europe more broadly. But finding a way for it to work for the individual countries that signed up to it, I think is a good thing.
Leon Emirali, as ever, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The time, 13 minutes past 7. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening news-wise. And tributes have been paid on social media to 3 young people killed in a car crash that left 2 others seriously injured in Cardiff. Eve Smith, Darcy Ross and Raphael Jean died in the accident, while Sophie Russon and Shane Loughlin remain in a critical condition. The car wasn't found until 2 days after the group went missing, despite being metres off the road.
Unions representing NHS staff are to begin talks with the government aimed at averting more strikes. The negotiations will focus on pay for this year and next year for ambulance workers, physiotherapists, nurses and midwives.
The King and Queen Consort will celebrate Colchester's new city status today. The former Essex town was awarded the city title during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. The couple will visit Colchester Zoo and the castle, ending the day with afternoon tea with representatives from Age UK and the Silver Line. Now, you will have heard a lot in the news yesterday about disgraced former Metropolitan Police Officer Wayne Couzens. He's now been sentenced to 19 months for 3 offences of indecent exposure. This was before he abducted, raped and murdered Sarah Everard.
Yes, Mrs Justice May said that the predatory offender could easily have been traced by his car registration and bank card, and condemned Scotland Yard for doing nothing.
So, the Metropolitan Police, big question, is it failing women? Let's go to Danny Brooke. Danny's a former Met Police undercover officer, and she was on the show last week talking about her new book with her thoughts on various things. And a lot of people will know you from the TV show Hunted as well, Danny. So it's very good to see you. But we're talking to you about your time in the force and your time as a woman on the force and the Metropolitan Police's attitude to women. Were you aware there was an attitude? Good morning.
Hi, good morning. No, is the honest answer. When I was in the police, I personally never experienced any of this. So for me, this is a complete and utter shock, as it is, of course, to the public. I never experienced any of this. Things have changed, of course. Life moves on. But I'm mortified that this person was amongst us and was one of us. I wore my uniform with absolute pride, and I do not believe that this person should have ever even been in the police.
Talk us through what the recourse is for those people who took the calls from these women, I presume they were all women, and didn't do anything about it. Because multiple calls were made to the police and it wasn't followed up. Did they get in trouble? Who gets in trouble for this?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of blame to be spread out here. It's not just one individual, is it? It's the whole the team that worked. Like you say, the call. Then who was that passed to? Who was then dealing with that? Like, why did nobody pick this up and go, hang on, this is not right. We should not have this person with us. There's a lot of answers owed, and I believe from when I was in the police that there are some people that should be punished. It should be from the start to the finish. This is not acceptable. I would always like to say wouldn't have happened in my day, and of course, he would have been in the police in my day, and maybe these things weren't spoken about then. But yes, absolutely, the people that took the call should have been blamed for this.
Talking about speaking about such things, the danger with all of this, Danny, is it not, that a lot of women will not feel comfortable in reporting incidents to the police, and perhaps they're not taking these reports wouldn't be taken as seriously by police because of staffing, for instance. I don't know. How do you see the conundrum?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned there about women not wanting to report crimes to police, that makes me very sad. I promise you, there are more good cops than bad cops. I know way more good cops than bad cops. We do take this very seriously. I certainly would have taken it seriously. I know my colleagues would have taken it seriously. I really hope we can get it back, that women, everybody, in particular women, can feel comfortable in reporting crime again to police and know that it will be taken seriously. I do believe there's a major issue with recruitment. You know, we had a period in the police where you could join the police by passing a degree with no policing experience. That's not what we need. You need to start as a constable, work your way up if you want to. You don't have to, of course. There's many cops I know that spent 30 years as a frontline officer. But there's a huge issue we have here with recruitment. You need experience. You need to have the trust of your colleagues. You need, you know, the bottom line here is recruitment. And I do have to say that I do believe our new Assistant Commissioner, Dame Lynn Owens, will be very good. I think she's going to make a lot of differences. I know she's keen and I know she's got vast experience. I know she's respected. I think she is the right person for the job in helping try to get our police force back to the best in the world.
Danny, we know that the police look after their own in the sense that if somebody is injured, you know, they rally round and, you know, there's a particular sense of outrage if police are wrapped up in things as victims. Is there any suggestion in all of this in relation to Wayne Couzens that perhaps this call came in and they realised that this was an undercover cop or he was an off-duty police officer or whatever, and they didn't follow it up? I mean, is that a possibility? Have you ever heard of those sorts of things going on? It's one of the suggestions that was made on the programme this morning, that they knew full well who he was.
Hand on heart, no, I don't believe that's the case. I personally would, you know, I can only speak from my personal experience, and I was very proud of being a cop. I was very proud to have a uniform. I wore it with pride. I knew what that entailed, being a police officer. If that is the case, that's outrageous, and those people need to not be a part of the police service. There's no room for people like that in the police service. You know, we're there to protect, we're there to serve our country, the members of the public. If that is the case, I can only apologise. That's not acceptable. That's not okay.
Yeah. In the studio today, we had a couple of female guests, Isabel being one of them, and talking about when they were children, how flashing was a regular occurrence. And it's a story I've heard a lot about London in particular, and tubes and things on London, around London. It is a child's complaint. I think you were saying you didn't think about reporting it.
We thought it was funny. We were just kids, yeah.
Yeah. What's your view on flashing to children and how serious that should be taken?
Absolutely. I mean, it's an offence, isn't it? It should absolutely be taken very, very seriously. It's not okay to do that. And if you do that, you're going to get in trouble. And I really hope that people... I hope we can get back the trust from the public so they do report these crimes, because it is a crime. It needs to be investigated. And it makes me sad. I feel sad that people don't report crimes because they think nothing's going to happen. I know so many good police officers that take their job very seriously. They join to make a difference. I know that sounds cliche, but you don't join for the salary, because the salary isn't great. The pension isn't great. You join because you genuinely are should be a good human and want to help other people.
Well, Danny Brooke, really appreciate your thoughts and your sentiments and your insight into all of this. Pleasure talking to you, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We've got a fabulous item up next. We're going to be speaking to 2 female plumbers on a mission to make the industry more equal. Have you ever had a female plumber?
No.
Maybe it's the thing to come. Find out in just a minute.
First and foremost, I'm a GBNews fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive, because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 7:26. Still to come on the programme today.
After 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to find out what Conservative MP Michael Fabricant, friend of the station, makes of Rishi Sunak's plan to stop the small boats and Boris Johnson's move to give his dad a knighthood.
And Eurovision tickets go on sale at midday today. We'll find out how you can get your hands on them and what to look forward to at the star-studded show in Liverpool.
If you're going to apply for a Eurovision ticket, let us know if you fancy going along there. Do you have a special Eurovision night when it comes along?
Do you know what? Sam Ryder, I've got a lot of time for, and so I'm suddenly a bit more interested. Plus, I hate losing, so for years I didn't like watching it because it felt like Britain bashing, but now we're back in the game. I'm all for it.
Okay.
And we've had loads of emails about tea. Have I got time to read these out? Because you were talking about how you can't have tea without a biscuit.
Oh, you have to have a biscuit.
Richard says, I'm with Eamonn. And so does Margaret.
Yeah.
Eamonn's right. A cup of tea is too wet without.
See, that is a phrase I like hearing. Eamonn is right. I do like
Not enough
that.
emails like that. My mum always used to say a cup of tea was too wet without a biscuit, says Maggie.
Yeah.
There you go. Lots of people talking about tea.
Pies.
Yeah.
Geraldine in Bury St Edmunds says, bottom layer bacon, followed by sausage, egg, then mushrooms and sliced tomatoes. Fabulous. For a pie?
Gosh, that sounds like a coronation dish. And another one here on tea. Nada says, I don't like traditional builder's tea from the usual brands. I hate the tannin. Green tea or white tea does not have the harsh tannins. They're also good for your body.
I'm sure you're right, Nada. Absolutely sure you're right. With me, it always has to have sort of milk and sugar and whatever. Don't drink coffee. Never have drank coffee.
Very strange. Very suspicious of you.
Just
non-caffeine.
Just the sort of guy I am. Hit
Clean
that sting.
living.
No, I think it's fair enough to say this is a trade that's traditionally more associated with men, but today we're meeting a woman keen to entice more women into the world of
plumbing.
Plumbing.
So Gemma Ireland is currently studying and training to become a plumber, and she joins us now. You're absolutely right. Why is it that more women don't do plumbing? Because we do human plumbing, don't we? We have female doctors that can do all that stuff. So if you can do it on a body, you can do it on a machine, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think anyone can do it. There's no difference being a woman to being a man and doing plumbing, I think.
Why do you think more girls and women then aren't already plumbers or interested in plumbing?
I don't think it's shown enough. Like in schools, I was never told about doing a trade or anything like that. You're kind of told to do the beauty courses and the guys are told to do the trades. But I just kind of looked into it myself, really. So I think because you're not shown it enough, really, there's not enough representation.
And what was the attraction, Gemma, for you? What was it that made you say, I'm going to do this, I'd like to do this as a job, as a career?
I wanted a hands-on job, and I looked at agriculture and I thought it's a bit of a lifestyle. So then I looked at different trades and did work experience at where I work now when I was 17. And I really enjoyed it, and I just kind of stuck with it since then.
I want to bring in Joanna Martin now, who's also a plumber. She struggled to get into the industry because of her age and her gender, so decided to set up her own business. Good morning to you, Joanna. You're the owner of Able Girl Plumbing. These are practical women who can get jobs done, and you thought, why don't I make some money from it?
Yep, that's right. That's correct, yes.
And have you done that? Have you had success then as a plumber?
Yes, I'm just going into my 17th year as a plumber.
So do you know what? Not only is that a long time, but for it to be a long time, you have to be good at it.
Yes, and we have a niche market as women in the industry.
Why are you saying that there are requests specifically just for women?
Yes. So we do a lot of domestic work, and it's quite often the lady of the house who has to employ a plumber, so they find us online and give us a call.
Oh, interesting. So actually, you've got a bit of an advantage, and you're and absolutely doing a roaring trade.
Yes.
So what was
There's
it
just
then
not
about...
enough female plumbers.
No, I'm sure you're absolutely right. So what needs to change then, in your opinion, Joanna? Because we've got Gemma joining in the ranks, but how do we get more young women inspired and interested in following in your footsteps?
I think through just general knowledge out there in the media. Gemma's my apprentice, and just trying to find her was a struggle initially anyway. I don't think there's any other girls at college with Gemma.
No, there's not in plumbing.
Gosh.
And Gemma, what was your fascination with the U-bend? Or a plunger, or whatever it was? I mean, well, you know, I can understand people being fascinated with car engines, but you know, what was it about pipes?
It's basically just the problem solving of it. You have a problem, and then you have to think about what you need and what you're going to do to solve it, really. So, but everyone thinks plumbing's really minging, but you do showers, you do like kitchens, you do lots of different things. It's not just toilets.
Yeah, we can see you looking very glamorous, attending to boilers and all sorts there, and flying the flag and making it look very...
It's all right when you're dealing with boilers. It's when you have to put your hand down drains and blockages and...
Yeah, but all jobs have their downsides,
not all jobs require you to put your hand that deep up in...
Yeah, but you know, plenty of nurses have to do all of that sort of thing, and lots of women...
But she's not a nurse. She's a pipe doctor. I suppose that's exactly what it is.
Doctor.
Do you know, Gemma, I do have to say that there is a saying, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I look at you two, and that's probably the case with you two.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy it.
Yeah, every day is different.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I only wish you lived closer, and I'd certainly be giving you a call. You're both up in Edinburgh, which is a shame. But if there's any female plumbers in the London area, happy to give you guys a go. There are.
There are a lot in London.
OK, well, we'll look into it, won't we?
Right. Well, I don't need a plumber.
Happy. All right.
I don't need a plumber.
OK.
But we did need one a few weeks ago. We did need... And they're always hard to get, Joanna. Why are they so hard to get, a plumber?
There's not enough out there at the moment.
Just not enough? Yeah.
Apprenticeships are difficult to get. Finding somebody who is prepared to take on an apprentice, I think, is an issue.
Lovely. And you'll always
the
be in
government
work,
could
guys.
do more.
Yeah, the Romans needed plumbers. Everybody since then have needed plumbers, so I can't see it changing anytime soon. Guys, thank you very much indeed. Joanna and Gemma, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Gemma.
Thank you. Bye.
You see, Gemma is an apprentice there. She's Joanna's apprentice. And I think it's great to have someone who you can look up to that teaches you the trade, teaches you what to do, and then lets you fly, lets you go and do your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But in fairness, we're doing what we wanted to do, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're right. I love my job. And that's what I want for my kids, that they love their
Would you
job.
consider yourself my apprentice at this?
Not at this stage, no. Maybe once upon a time. Sorry. Once upon a time. You told
Coming
me
up
not.
to 25 to 8 now. Is socialising more the secret to a longer life?
Ooh, we're discussing that with Leo Kearse and Emma Burnell as we go through the papers.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now? Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is a Tuesday morning. It is 22 minutes before 8 o'clock. We're going to have a look at today's front pages, and this is the way they stack up.
Here's The Sun, the Prime Minister writing for them today. He's talking about his border bill vow to take back control as he moves to ban small boat migrants.
The Express reports that the Home Secretary's jibe to Labour backed the law to stop boats or betray Britain.
Here's The Mirror. It's leading with Boris Johnson putting his father Stanley up for a potential knighthood.
And the Mail features a photo of one of the Cardiff crash victims and questions the time it took police to find the car with 3 dead bodies inside.
OK, joining us to go through the papers this morning in more details, the comedian Leo Kearse and the political consultant Emma Burnell. Welcome back to both of you. Leo, I want to start with you and The Telegraph. We've been talking about the latest WhatsApp messages, and this one caught my eye, talking about the sex ban that was being brought in, and Chris Whitty saying this is not advisable.
So Chris Whitty wanted, or rather, politicians wanted to ban sex during lockdown because, of course, it can be a way of transferring COVID. Apparently,
between people who aren't regularly having sex.
Hopefully between people, not between a man and a
people
chicken.
who weren't living together.
That's what I was trying to say. I was trying to find the words. Thank you,
a ban on casual sex. But Chris Whitty said it's not realistic. I don't know if this is because he wanted... Because there are quite a few people during lockdown, quite a few of our rule makers who are then going out and breaking the rules and having casual sex and having affairs. So yeah, and I think he's quite right. I think that would have been the moment that British people took up arms and took to the streets and overturned all the lockdown rules.
OK. Emma, do you want to come back on that? Or
I mean, yeah, I think Chris Whitty's job was to say this stuff will and won't work. And there is an element of just having to understand the public and where they were and weren't willing to go. And I think couples who were not yet living together... I do know some people who did move in together slightly quicker than they expected to during lockdown. I don't know how well that's worked out for all of them.
I seem to remember graphics in the papers describing how you could have casual sex without transferring COVID. Do you remember that? And it was showing certain positions where there wasn't...
And the government
not
recommended...
breathing on each other, basically not...
The government recommended things like glory holes, which was... Yeah.
OK. I think we'll move on from that. It's way too early for that.
Wait,
No, don't worry. We won't dwell on that.
OK. Right,
where do you want to go, Eamonn? You can choose. Take your choice. I need a moment.
Emma, Estonia vote. OK, this is a front page of the Financial Times.
Yeah, so the Prime Minister of Estonia has been really kind of leading a lot of the way on the Ukrainian situation.
Yeah.
And she has just been returned with an increased number of seats for her party in Parliament. Their Parliament will nearly always be a coalition government because that's the way they're set up. They have a number of different parties. But her party has increased its its seat share. The far-right party came second but lost 2 seats, which is interesting. And so she will also there'll be other Liberal parties that she can go into coalition, and that will almost certainly be what happens now. She's a really interesting character, and Estonia is actually a really, really interesting country. They're doing some things that we're actually learning from in the UK. For example, they've really had a great focus on early years childcare and making that a big part of their productivity strategy, and their economy is doing really well as a result. So I would say that while she has massively improved her the international profile of Estonia through her leadership on Ukraine, it is also worth looking at what they're doing domestically, because Estonia is a really, really astonishing success story.
Mm-hmm. Didn't know that.
There you go, you see.
There you go. Right, so, Leo, using the word woman in the NHS, what do you like to be identified as, incidentally?
I like to be identified as a woman because anybody can in Scotland now. You know, they've got the gender reform bill. But yeah, this has been an issue that's been rumbling on in the NHS for years now. They've been replacing the word woman, which everybody understands what that means, with terms like people who have cervixes and people who menstruate, which nobody understands what that means. So NHS staff have come out and said, listen, you've got to reinstate the word woman. I mean, apart from the fact that, you know, calling women people who menstruate reduces women to like a single biological function, which is, you know, it's pretty dehumanising. I know my wife, you know, in some of the literature she had when she was pregnant, she felt slighted, and I don't think that's good. But also, you know, people coming to the country that don't speak English as a first language, or even people that are born here that aren't raised with English as a first language, don't understand what a person with a cervix is, whereas they'll understand what woman means.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Public health messaging has to be simple and clear. And it is astonishing that it's always woman. So you constantly see adverts for prostate cancer and things like that, and it always uses the term man. So it seems to be there's a different rule for the term man than there is for the term woman. Now, obviously, we want an NHS that is inclusive to transgender people, but that doesn't mean that we should make that less inclusive for, as you say, people with English as a second language, people with learning difficulties.
Just for women.
Or just for women, absolutely. So we need to be able to use much clearer language. Health policy language should always be as clear as possible.
But is this going to happen, is the question?
Well, fingers crossed. I mean, it does seem to be the NHS, if they're struggling for money, why are they wasting money developing different terms for the word woman, you know, creating unnecessary work and spending money on unnecessary work and rewriting of guidance and publications when they could just stick with the terms they've already got? It seems a nonsense. And it's not as if the word woman is discriminatory or excludes transgender people. If you're a trans man, so you're born as a woman and then you transition, you understand that you've got a vagina, and you know that, you know, menstruation advice applies to you as well. So it's not excluding anybody. The whole thing's a nonsense.
Right, let's go to the Times. This is page 3 in the Times. The secret to a longer life, Emma, is
Socialising.
Brilliant.
Apparently, there's a study done in China of over 70-year-olds, and those who socialised every day were living longer by quite a significant margin. And it does show how important, and I think we're really starting to understand now a lot more, the effect that loneliness has, not just on our emotional health, but on our physical health too. So it's really important to get out there, see your mates, make sure that you're having an active social life. I'm delighted because every other aspect of health policy I'm not great at, but I'm really good at going out and seeing friends. Good. So I finally feel like I might live forever.
Well, Isabel and I went out yesterday afternoon and we mingled, and I think it's very good for your mental health, for people we bumped into. For all
it's
of
very
us.
good for you to be allowed.
No, but I found, Leo, I've been bedridden, I've been hospitalised a number of times in the past 9 months, and I tell you, mate, the thing that got to me most was being on my own.
Yeah.
And people not visiting. I always remember my mother, God rest her soul, and she used to say, nobody comes to visit me, nobody comes to see me. And we'd say, well, we do, Mum, or we phone, or the Zoom. She didn't want Zoom and whatever. But I do think that it was like, if you got it right, the socialisation, it was like having a tablet that worked and hit the spot. It was better than medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was in a run over by a truck when I was a teenager, so I had to spend time in hospital. And yeah, it was amazing when people came in and visited. When my friends could actually find the right hospital and come in and see me, it was really cheers you up. I think social media now is great. I don't know if you found that this time round. You know, having access to people just on your phone.
Yeah.
But does that count? Because I actually think a lot of people have substituted out real human physical socialising with going into themselves and being on their phones, whether that be in their marriage, whether that be in their friendship groups. I do genuinely think people are less sociable now, more obsessed with
You think you've got to press the flesh, really, for it to work?
I mean, I think it's like all things. You need a balance. You can tweet one moment, WhatsApp the next, but then also go and see your friends in the pub or the park. And I think it's great that we have all these options. If you're only on social media, then you are going to be getting quite a skewed version of the world, and you won't get the same kind of contact that we all need.
This story is different for many people, depending where you live in the country. I do find it particularly difficult to socialise in London because if Emma says, Eamonn, call over and see me tomorrow, whatever it is, it's sure as heck it'll be 90 minutes, you know, from where I am to where you are, and that's 90 minutes.
Eamonn, you are welcome to East London anytime you want to come and visit
Where
me.
is East London?
Well, see London, there's this one quadrant of it.
I can honestly tell you that's as far away from me as you could get. So I would be southwest and you would be east.
I mean, I have some wonderful local friends, but you're right, London's a very big city. So when I see my friends from, say, southwest London, it is harder. We do tend to be in the middle.
I'm beyond that. I'm suburbia.
But these are. There are ways, we have local friends. I have friends I go for a walk with almost every weekend. But then there are also, I'm lucky in London because I've lived here all my life. I was born a Londoner. So I've got friends from throughout my life scattered across the city. So there's always somebody local I can go and see.
Well, see, I find the geography, the dynamics very different in Belfast. You may find it very difficult in Glasgow. Some people that's oppressive because you have people on top of you, people knowing your business. A lot of people don't like that as well. But I find my social life, I often bore Isabel with this, but my social life is completely
You love Belfast.
different. Yeah, because people are so contactable. They're so... I mean, it's...
And people talk to you. Like anybody in Glasgow, you wait at the bus stop, people will talk to you. That doesn't happen in London.
To be fair, I'm going to fly the flag. I'm born in London and I live in a little corner of it where my kids go to the local school. I know every other house, virtually. I can't walk to the shops without bumping into people I know. There's a lovely community. It's
my road's just like that. I think this myth that London's unfriendly. London's huge. If you literally tried to say hello to everybody you walk past on the street, you'd never get anywhere. But actually, my road's very friendly. My local shop know me.
Look, they jump out of their skin. I'm with Leo everywhere here. You go and say, hello, what about you? And they look at you like, do I know you? Why have you just spoken to me for?
Are you robbing me?
Yes, with our accents.
Surely they look at you and go, that's Eamonn Holmes off the telly.
No, see, do you find this as well? No, seriously. I walk past people and they think, George, and I say sorry, and they go, George Clooney, what are you doing here? And I go, honestly, it gets embarrassing after a while, and I think, but that's what people think, so that's the way it is. Guys, we sort of say goodbye to you for the next 40 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. Leo and Emma there with what's in the papers. They'll be back just after 8:30.
Now, we are talking about food banks dedicated not to humans, but to cats and dogs, our four-legged friends, and other animals, of course, because the rising cost of living is putting pressure on people's finances, and that includes budgets for animals.
Yeah, a lot of people can't afford to keep them, and the initiative has already supported thousands of pets, meaning they can stay in households that might otherwise have had to take them to a rescue centre.
Well, Alison Fletcher, who set up the RSPCA's Food Bank, joins us now. Good morning to you. Look, perhaps we don't think of the consequences of a cost of living crisis on our four-legged friends, but of course they also suffer in all of this.
They definitely do. And we first started seeing this back in 2020 during COVID, when myself and my colleagues were knocking on doors and trying to assist and support people as much as possible. But we were coming across more and more struggling pet owners who were having to make those really difficult decisions, like when we're going to have to rehome the pets. And really sadly, we were coming across lots and lots of people that were choosing to feed them pets over themselves. And we knew we had to do more. And that's why we developed this initiative.
Yeah. And then how widespread, we all are so aware of the food bank schemes for humans and whatever, but just how serious is this? How expensive can a pet be? And what are the consequences, I suppose, Alison, for people who feel they don't want to spend the money or they can't spend the money on pet food?
I think this is definitely a widespread problem, and it is affecting many, many people. There has been a pet boost over the last 2 years. There's many more pets in people's houses, and people just weren't expecting this to happen to them. People are losing jobs where they just hadn't foreseen it. And, as you were talking before about socialisation, pets are really support pet owners. Being without them, many people just couldn't face that. They're the only support, the only thing that they have to keep them company. So it's really important, not just for the well-being of the animal, but for the well-being of the owners, that we do everything we can to keep them together. The way we do that is by working with the food banks, because what is really important to get across is that food banks offer amazing, vital wraparound support to help people get back on their feet. So what we do, and many animal charities are doing at the moment, is we provide that animal welfare wraparound support, that pet food provision, looking at all those extra costs, flea treatment to prevent your dogs getting serious skin problems in the future, vaccines. All of that keeps the cost down by preventing things from deteriorating and getting worse.
Right, so Alison, I don't have any pets at the moment, so correct me if I'm wrong, but am I right in thinking that a bit like with humans, we have a tendency perhaps to overfeed our pets in terms of, as a sort of sign of love, we think, oh, I love my dog so much, I'd give them a bit too much. We actually probably could save a bit of money if we didn't waste so much food on perhaps overfeeding them.
We could. It's very important that pet owners do look at the packaging of the diet that they can provide to their animals, make sure they're feeding them the right amount. Lots of people can overdo it on treats and giving animals human food, and there's lots of human foods that aren't good for our animals. And actually, the long-term cost savings of having a really healthy pet, getting that pet out exercising, that gets us out socialising, doing that should prevent those extra vet bills coming in as well when it's affecting their health.
Well, good luck to you, Alison, and all that you're trying to do. Alison's from the RSPCA, their pet food bank coordinator. She is talking to us from Lancashire today. Really appreciate it, Alison. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And good luck with what she's doing. But the thing is, as you say, it's not that people feed their dogs. Their dogs look at them and say, I'm starving.
I've seen you do it. I've seen you eating bacon.
If my wife...
my Maggie...
Yes, if she looked at me, if my wife looked at me the way my dog is, she could have anything she wanted. Anything.
Well, there you go.
That's all you've got to learn.
What's the word?
Big doe eyes.
I can't think of the word.
That's what you want.
Yeah, big doe eyes. There we go.
Big doe eyes.
Right, stay with us. After this, we'll be talking about the Prime Minister's pledge to take back control of the country's borders.
But first, what's happening with the weather? It's going to get cold. Here's Greg.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst. Welcome to your latest broadcast from the Met Office. A cold, icy day to come for many of us today. There will be sunny spells, but also the risk of snow. So icy stretches from the word go. The reason for this is we've got northerly winds across the UK coming down from the Arctic at the moment. At the same time, weather systems trying to move in from the Atlantic, increasing the risk of some rain, sleet and snow to southern counties of England and Wales at times. And we've got some of that this morning across southern counties here, perhaps some slushy deposits in places, some icy stretches elsewhere. Plenty of sunny spells stretching up into northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland, but some heavy snow showers too. Met Office warning those snow showers right through the day, perhaps up to 10 centimetres over the higher ground. In between, though, largely dry, sunny spells. Temperatures, though, for everyone below average today. We'll see highs of just 2 to 6 degrees across the whole of the country. Into the evening time, still the risk of some rain, sleet and snow across southern counties of England. Elsewhere, under clearing skies, temperatures are going to quickly fall below freezing. Still some snow showers moving into parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, down the east coast of England too, leading to some icy stretches. In the early hours, we can still see rain, sleet and snow in the far south of England, perhaps stretching into Wales too. Temperatures well below freezing, perhaps minus 10 to 15 across the glens of Scotland to start Wednesday morning. Icy stretches to start the day, so do take care if you are heading out over the next few mornings. Into the afternoon, we'll see the frost slowly lift. Plenty of sunshine for many. Snow showers becoming fewer across northern and eastern Scotland, northeast England, but still the risk of some rain, sleet and snow affecting southern parts of England into Wales. A cold feeling day, perhaps just something milder creeping into the far southwest later on as the winds pick up here. So over the next few days, there's a lot going on with the weather. It stays unsettled, further rain, sleet and snow at times. Just something a little milder coming into the far south as we head towards the weekend. See you again soon.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it. Like, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hello, I'm Michael Portillo. You can join me every Sunday on GB News. Remember to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel and to download the GB News app to stay up to date with the latest GB News content. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
The Prime Minister vows to take back control once and for all as he prepares to unveil the biggest crackdown on illegal migration in decades.
Good morning, it's 8:01 on Tuesday the 7th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, thanks for your company. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
The Home Secretary has promised to push the boundaries of international law as she prepares to unveil new legislation to stop small boat crossings.
I'm live at the Home Office where stopping the small boats is a top priority. But almost a year after the Rwanda deal was announced by Boris Johnson, not a single asylum seeker has gone to that country. Can Rishi Sunak do any better?
More Matt Hancock revelations in the Daily Telegraph today. He's reportedly discussed a plan to block funding for a new disabled children's centre as a way to get back at an MP so that he would back new pandemic restrictions. The latest messages released by the newspaper were sent ahead of a vote on a tougher local COVID tier system.
The Met Office has extended snow and ice warnings for much of the country as forecasters warn a major change is underway. Arctic air sweeping in from the north is expected to cause significant disruption with difficult travel conditions throughout the week.
And the Eurovision countdown is on as the competition prepares for its big night in Liverpool in May. We'll tell you how to bag yourself tickets, which go on sale today.
And we want to hear from you throughout the programme. You've been doing so in your droves. Alison's just got in touch from South Devon. She says, I'm watching the clock tick down for tickets to go on sale for Eurovision, even taking a couple of hours off work to be prepared to wait in a virtual queue. Hotel has been booked in anticipation. I grew up watching Eurovision all my life. I'm 55 years old and it is on my bucket list. I think she's a little bit excited. Alison, good luck. I hope you get those tickets today.
Enjoy. Back to the news, and our top story this morning. Rishi Sunak has vowed to take back control of the country's borders once and for all as the government prepares to announce a major crackdown on illegal migration.
But as our Home and Security editor Mark White reports, despite the Home Secretary's pledge to push the boundaries of international law, critics believe it'll be bogged down in legal challenges.
On wasteland near Calais, another migrant camp has sprung up. Hundreds of tents and other makeshift structures have been erected, offering shelter to those planning to cross illegally to the UK in the days and weeks ahead. Further up the coast, the area's largest camp, along the railway tracks near Dunkirk, has now been cleared. Evidence that authorities here are certainly trying to disperse those planning to cross the Channel. On the UK side, the government is also stepping up the pressure. New legislation, which we're told will make claiming asylum all but impossible for those entering the UK illegally, and will include a lifetime ban on claiming asylum.
Any policies that will be put in place now are not some ideological or intellectual exercise. They are practical steps that's going to allow the Home Office to hopefully get their act together and to work with the democratically elected politicians to act upon what people actually want them to do.
After months of construction work, miles of security fencing is now in place around the beaches at Gravely near Dunkirk, the site of many of the small boat launches. But in recent weeks, people smugglers have simply moved location. And many are sceptical that new legislation will make any real difference in managing a crisis that saw more than 45,000 people cross the Channel in flimsy inflatables last year.
The returns agreements are the nub on which the entire policy lands, and if that fails, if there aren't places to send all of these illegal immigrants that the government is planning to detain, then it will all fall apart and it will all be for naught. So that's a very important bit of the plan.
It's almost a year since then Prime Minister Boris Johnson made bold predictions about the government's new plan to send many asylum seekers to Rwanda. Since then, not a single flight has taken off for that country. However determined Rishi Sunak may be to ensure his plan has more success, it's certain there will be no end of challenges from those determined to block the government's latest proposals.
That was Mark's report. Let's go to him now outside the Home Office. Mark, it's tough talk. Has it any chance of succeeding?
Well, I mean, we're almost a year after the Rwanda deal was announced by Boris Johnson, and that is going nowhere anytime soon. It's bogged down in legal challenges, and not a single asylum seeker has been sent to Rwanda so far. So will Rishi Sunak do any better? Who knows? It's certainly the government's intention, they say, to try and ensure that those coming via these irregular routes, so coming across in small boats in the backs of lorries, however else they might come illegally to the UK, will not then qualify for asylum. But that opens itself right up to a raft of legal challenges that are sure to follow. So could we be looking at them, this legislation being bogged down as well? I think almost certainly. However, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, will at 12:30 today, we're told, be announcing this new legislation. We're also told that it's going to be retrospective in the sense that it may take a few months for the legislation to go through, but anyone that crosses the English Channel via boat or in the backs of lorries from today can expect that they will no longer be able to claim asylum. We got a couple of hundred people who came across in small boats yesterday. The weather conditions aren't very good in the Channel today, so it remains to be seen whether any will cross today. And of course, will it make any difference to the numbers crossing? We'll remember last year, after the Boris Johnson announcement and the bold claims that this would be a disruptor for the business business model of the people traffickers. Well, despite that, we had a bumper year, a record year of almost 46,000 people who crossed the English Channel.
Mark, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. In the studio, Conservative MP for Lichfield, we've got Michael Fabricant here. The Prime Minister talking tough on migrants. The Home Secretary will be talking tough later today. Can you take any credit in this?
Well, we had an away day. First time in about 6-7 years, actually, at a very nice hotel in Egham in West London. And that was all the MPs, all the Conservative MPs, obviously, with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. And one of the things came out was, look, we have got to stop these illegal crossings. I mean, you know, your reporter said quite rightly, 46,000 almost came last year. We don't know how many thousands were actually drowned in the process. So, you know, this has to stop. Now, we were saying constantly, you know, to Rishi, you know, something's got to be done. But what we didn't expect was it to happen so quickly. And today at possibly 12:30, there may be something called an urgent question, which actually will come before the statement. But anyway, early afternoon, we'll be hearing the full details.
Yeah, and look, it's a dreadful phrase, but this is red meat for the Conservative Party members, for the grassroots. It's a huge issue of concern for the population, so it's good politics. But can he and Suella Braverman legally get what they want to do through?
Well, I had a meeting last night with Sue Braverman, and she said that they're going to say, actually, well, I'm not going to go into, because it's boring, about the various clauses and opt-outs, but we can do it. And, you know, the interesting thing is they do this sort of thing in Denmark and Sweden. So it's actually not that unusual, because there's a sort of industry, isn't there, in this country, of people who sort of talk about the refugees and how evil the government is and we should allow everybody in. But actually, we're not doing anything more than what some of these Scandinavian countries are doing, and they're members, too, of the human rights courts of justice. I think the problem, to be honest with you, is that Tony Blair, when he was in, and, you know, it's not that long ago, brought in the Human Rights Act. And this was a new thing. And unintended consequences are that you could get a single judge late at night saying that the Rwandan flight is not going ahead, and it stopped it. And we, in this Act of Parliament, will say, no, that can't stop us.
But even if, you know, the lawyers weren't preventing, for example, the flights to Rwanda, when we're talking about 45,000 people coming in through small boats last year, there's only 300 spaces available, or 200 even, in Rwanda. It's not even going to touch the surface of the problem.
Well, I think the aim is to actually deter people. First of all, there will be more space found. We've done a treaty with Albania. A lot of the people are coming from Albania, which is not the backward country. I've been to Albania. It's actually a very nice country, you know, and Albania has agreed they can be sent back there. Years ago, we had a treaty with France that we could send them back to France. I mean, the irony is people, the refugees, and we'll call them refugees, but most of them actually are economic migrants, are travelling through safe countries like Germany and France. And under international treaty, you should be able to get asylum in the very first country, which is safe. Yeah. Instead, they're going across all these other safe countries, including Switzerland, and wanting to come to this golden nirvana, which is the United Kingdom. We should be flattered.
Michael, all these countries, and I was surprised looking at this today, including Austria, have big migrant problems. Germany and France, they have far bigger problems than we have. And we try and make it out that, you know, they just hand all the migrants over to us, but it's not the case.
No, it's not the case. And I think, in fairness, if I were the French, I wouldn't want them back either, you know. I mean, I do understand that. But then I also understand that my constituents in Lichfield can't get an appointment to see their doctor.
And you think that's because of migrants?
I don't think it is in Lichfield, to be honest with you, but it is in other parts. Look, 46,000 last year. There was another 40,000 the year before that. It's bound to put pressure on our health service, schools, and all the rest. And anyway, it encourages the people traffickers and it encourages drowning, you know. So we've got to do something to deter people from coming here.
What about Matt Hancock? More revelations in the Telegraph this morning. At this time, we were hearing very unfortunate trading going on behind the scenes, where he was saying he was going to block funding for a disabled children's hub if this MP didn't support his COVID tier restrictions.
Well, I mean, in the end, it didn't happen at all. But to even talk about it was rather stupid, but not half as stupid as giving his phone to Isabel Oakeshott and expecting a journalist not to look at all this ripe WhatsApp comments going on, some of which he knew would never happen, and think, you know what, she's not going to use it. Well, she did. And more fool Matt Hancock, who I like. But, you know, you really think, how naive can you get?
What about your friend Boris Johnson wanting to give his dad a knighthood? I mean, we can understand the sentiment. We all love our parents, usually. But Keir Starmer saying it's outrageous. What on earth is he getting a knighthood for?
Well, I mean, Keir Starmer is going on to the popular line there because I think 55% of the population have said they think it's wrong. And it's certainly a bad look, you know, giving your own dad a knighthood. But you asked me, what is he getting the knighthood for? Look, Stanley Johnson was a conservationist years before people talked about conservation.
No one else wanted to give him a knighthood for his...
Well, somebody else should have given him, because he was a member of the European Parliament. He was arguing for conservation of rare species. He's written several learned books on the subject. Nobody gave him, but maybe the problem was because he was Boris Johnson's dad. But,
so you don't have an issue with it? You think the man probably deserves it?
I think actually he does deserve it, but not because he's Boris Johnson's dad. He deserves it for all the work he's done on conservation. He came up actually a few years ago to Lichfield and gave a speech on rare tigers and other things that he's involved in and various charities.
Do you have many rare tigers in Lichfield?
Well, Eamonn, you've got to come to Lichfield. I want a commitment from you. You're going to come to Lichfield and see our rare tigers.
I'm often passing on the motorway. I see the signpost for it, but I've never been.
You should. It's a beautiful little city.
Okay, I'll take your word for that. Very good. Thank you very much indeed. Michael Fabricant there, MP for Lichfield, Conservative MP for Lichfield, and a few views there. If you've got anything you want to retort, anything you want to come back with, there used to be a sign up here that would tell me what...
GBNews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GBNews. I don't know, it's weird. I just retain these kinds of weird... Look, there's on the screen now. There you go.
Oh, there it is there. Yeah, that's what you do.
Also, the time. The time is 8:15. That is not on your screen, it's on our screen, and we can bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
OK, tributes have been paid on social media to the 3 young people killed in a car crash that left 2 others seriously wounded, injured in Cardiff. Eve Smith, Darcy Ross, Raphael Jean died in the accident, while Sophie Rousson and Shane Loughlin remain in a critical condition. The car wasn't found until 2 days after the group went missing, despite being metres off the main road.
Cancer Research UK estimates around 75,000 GP appointments would be freed up every month if smoking stopped in England. The charity says it remains the biggest cause of cancer-related deaths and is urging the government to do more to prevent young people picking up the habit and to help current smokers to quit.
Yellow weather warning in place for large parts of the country. Snow and ice is on its way. Arctic air sweeping in from the north is expected to cause significant disruption with difficult travel conditions throughout the week. Tonight expected to be the coldest night of the year so far. You have been warned.
You read this one, because I don't really know the answer.
Could the Arsenal's over-exuberant celebrations earn them a slap on the wrist? Well, Paul Coyte's got all the latest sports news for you and Isabel right after this break.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:20. Still to come on the programme today. Tickets to the Eurovision Song Contest in Liverpool go on sale at midday today. At 8:45, we'll be talking to showbiz journo Ellie Phillips about it all, and she'll be telling us how we can get our hands on those much anticipated tickets.
9:15, former apprentice aide Nick Hewer on a mission to get a better deal for farmers around the world who have been pushed to the brink by unfair trade and climate change. So if you're a farmer or you're anyone else who's got a view on all of this, or an apprentice fan, Nick's an absolute gentleman, so he is.
Lovely.
So it's lovely to have him on. And GBviews at gbnews.uk, which Isabel is right up to date with, or you can tweet at GB News.
A few messages coming in about feeding your pets. We were talking about how pet food banks have been opening. Alison in South Devon says, great to have a piece on feeding pets, as people forget that it's not just human food that has a massive price increase.
Yes.
And Lee says, I got fed up with the ever-increasing price of dog food. I decided to make my own wet food. For £4, I can make 14 meals for a small German Shepherd. Cribble is extra. What's cribble? Kibble? What's kibble?
Show me the word. Show me the word.
I think he's just put an extra R in, but what is kibble? dry dog food, so you don't have a dog. There we go. Thank you for that.
And if you're
For your
going to
top
get a
tip,
dog,
Lee.
if you're going to get a dog, adopt, don't shop.
Unless you've got young
what I'm
kids. Oh, right, we're going through the back pages now.
We're not.
Oh, we're not? Oh, that's okay.
We haven't got any time.
OK, fine. Sorry, I thought you meant, as in I want you to read it. I'm not reading this, you said. So I thought you meant you read it. I was going to be quiet. Over to you.
Manchester United are sitting ducks, according to the Mirror. Manager Eric Ten Hag ordered them to sit in silence. You know what you were saying yesterday, Paul?
Yes.
What would he do in retribution? So he says, you'll sit there and you will listen. Listen to the Liverpool players next door celebrating their win. I can't forget how many goals they scored, but
7-0.
7.
I lost count.
7.
After 5. Yeah. Bruno Fernandes. Now, what's all this about? The Mail saying his dream of full-time captaincy of Man U is at an end following his antics in the match. What's that? What were his antics in the match?
He was a bit kicky. He was a bit cheaty.
He was a bit
kicky, and he was a bit pushy towards the referee as well. Gave him a little push. So he, not really very sportsmanlike, I think, is my diplomatic way of describing it.
This is where I'm totally with Roy Keane.
Right.
How they all hug and kiss each other.
I agree.
Before and after games and whatever.
You don't want to see that.
What the heck's that all about?
You don't want to see that. You don't want to see that.
Just winding up.
You don't want to be doing
Speak
that.
to players of the past and they'll say the same thing. You don't shake hands, you don't do all that. Leave it till afterwards, not before the game.
Yeah, I just want to tell something that will annoy you a bit. There's a lot of talk on the back pages about Man United being in for Harry Kane.
Right.
If your lot don't qualify for Europe.
Right, OK. Well, Harry's contract runs out at the end of next season. Always talk about Harry because everybody wants him, because he's the best striker there is in the country, if not the world. £100 million possibly. Manchester United need a number 9 up front.
Oh.
Obviously, people will start pointing at Harry Kane. Conjecture and rumour, I don't think he's going to go anywhere.
Well, we have somebody called Wenger Warthog or something up front now.
Wout Weghorst, yes.
Nobody really knows what he does, but anyway...
Nuisance value, I think they call players like that.
We know that, he doesn't score. Anyway.
Please keep your hands off of Harry.
OK.
Thank you very much.
Right, football action last night.
Brentford 3, Fulham 2. Do you know Brentford are one of only 3 teams in all the major leagues in Europe not to have lost a game?
Well,
in 2023.
Well, that needs recognition, so it does as well. Really well-run club, great manager, all very good. So credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I mean, he's the thing is, Thomas Frank is saying you can dream of Europe. You know, he's doing the very much, you know, keep your feet on the ground. We'll see how we go. But they're doing so well. I mean, if we look at they're in 9th at the moment, but we're only 4 points off of Liverpool, who are up in 5th. So anything's possible, you know? It's a very interesting league at the moment. But like you say, Brentford, great run club. Everybody loves Brentford, obviously apart from Fulham yesterday. But it's only Dortmund and Rennes in France that have not lost this year.
OK.
So very good stuff for them.
Champions League.
Talking to Dortmund, unbeaten. 10 games on the trot they've won. Chelsea, they're playing out Chelsea. Chelsea are currently 1-0 down. You'd think in times in the past that if any team goes to Chelsea and Chelsea are only 1-0 down, if they're going to Stamford Bridge, they stand a great chance. But the ways Chelsea are, I mean, yes, they won at the weekend against Leeds, but Dortmund are really, really good. So I think it's going to be very, very tricky for Chelsea to get anything out of that. So I think Dortmund will probably go through. Keep my fingers crossed for Chelsea, but I kind of doubt it.
So Arsenal are being investigated by the FA.
Yeah.
This was because the last-minute goal against Bournemouth caused wild scenes. Tell us more.
97th minute, so they were 2-0 down, and then it went to 2-2, and then, as everybody expected, Arsenal were going to score right at the end, which they did, 97th minute. Everybody goes crazy, which is understandable, which you would if you're 2-0 down and you're going for the title. Everybody runs onto the pitch. So there we are, everybody's celebrating there, not only the players, coaching staff. I think Mikel Arteta, there we are, the coaching staff there. Everybody's going mad. So the FA are not very happy, or the Premier League, that there could be charges against them because coaching staff have to stay off the pitch. But I think over-exuberant, I think even though coming from a Spurs fan, a goal like that, everybody's going to get very excited excited.
Yeah.
You can't take all the emotion out of football, can you? So I think that's okay.
So, well, it's not only the coaching staff that have to stay off the pitch, supporters have to stay off the pitch as well.
I think that's always a very good thing, the supporters stay off the pitch. But we're going to go back to the Man United game again. And I apologise for this, but it is in the story.
You so don't.
Liverpool fan could be handed a lifetime ban.
So Firmino comes off the bench. He scores the 7th goal.
Yeah.
And then this guy jumps on and
just runs towards the players. But the thing is, as he runs towards the players, I don't know what gets into your head. Obviously, you know, the excitement. We know what it's like when your team scores, especially the 7th. So run on the pitch. But the thing is, as he runs towards the players to celebrate, he slips. He hasn't got studs on. Slides into Andy Robertson. Gives Andy Robertson a knock, which is something that none of your players actually managed to do during the game. Then gets up. So Jurgen Klopp was livid, screaming and shouting at the supporter. This only should be banned for life. You know what? I know it's against the law. It shouldn't be allowed. You can't be running on the pitch, but dangerous, illegal, and should have severe consequences, is what Liverpool Football Club have said. Is it a ban for life, though, do you think, to run on? He was just overexcited. I don't know whether I'm being too soft with him.
Well, I'd be like you.
Yeah?
I'd be like you.
I think so. You know, it's one of those things. But shouldn't have done it, but, you know, banned for life.
Well, you could argue that Novak Djokovic should have got his vaccinations. He didn't get the vaccinations. And as a result...
Well, he still can't play in America because he's played in the Australian Open. Everywhere else has been fine. He can go in. But because he hasn't got his vaccinations, he can't play in the States. There's the big competition, which is the Indian Wells. There's the Miami Open coming up as well. But the restrictions will be lifted by Joe Biden on May the 11th, which means after that, Djokovic will be able to play. So when we look at the US Open, that's not until August, so it's fine. But in the meantime, you know, still, I think it's 8 tournaments that he's missed in all because of not being vaccinated, but we open the whole can of worms again. But basically, he can't go to the States still, but after May the 11th, he will be allowed to play.
OK, my friend, very good. Do you ever just hope you put your hand down the back of the couch and you think, you hope there's some money there, you'll feel some dosh?
Wherever I go, I'm always got my hand. I've even got my hand down the side of your chair. I don't know if you noticed that. What you're thinking of?
No, I was wondering what you were up to there. I dropped my phone down the back of my chair yesterday. Took forever to get.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, how deep is the chair, for crying out loud?
Well, it's a very slim phone.
Right.
Actually, it was in this fully erect state.
Right.
That it has here. So actually, just there it is.
Yeah.
So there it is. That's the way it goes. It folds like that. But then it's like an after 8 mint. It slipped down the chairs, and it's my special chair. You know, my recliner.
Of course. Yeah.
For my orthopedics.
Yeah. And the lazy boy.
Yeah, and it was stuck.
How long? How long was it in there?
3 hours or so.
So is that why you haven't been replying to my text? Was it because of that?
Well, it could well have been, mate, but it was nobody was getting a reply for anything.
Did you get any money out of there as well, by the way?
No, there's no money down
No money,
there.
just the phone. At least you got the phone.
There were a couple of Maltesers. Yeah.
Did you have them?
It was a jelly tot. No, it did not. No.
But don't be so disgusted. I would have done.
If I find out who was eating Maltesers on my chair, there'd be trouble.
OK.
There will be trouble.
Right. Paul's the dog.
Thank you. And the reason we're talking about money down the back of the chair is, Isabel?
Well, there's £76 million of cash in unused British bank accounts, apparently. I wish that was...
I hope some of it's ours.
Leo Kearse and Emma Burnell reveal who's got rights to it when we go through the papers in a moment.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, 8:34. Let's take a look at today's front pages of the newspaper. Here's The Sun. The Prime Minister has written inside their paper this morning, vowing to take back control of our borders. He's moving to ban small boat migrants.
Express reports on the Home Secretary's jibe to Labour, back the law to stop boats or betray Britain, she says.
Here's the Mirror. It's leading with Boris Johnson putting his dad Stanley up for a potential knighthood.
And the Mail features a photo of one of the Cardiff crash victims and questions the time it took for police to find that car with 3 dead bodies inside.
OK, we're going to go through the papers one last time this morning with the comedian Leo Kearse and the political consultant Emma Burnell. Welcome back. Leo, you want to start with The Guardian, and they're talking about these migration laws being cruel and that they should be backdated to prevent a rush across the Channel.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, we've covered this story already, but it's interesting to see The Guardian's taken it. So, they say the migration law is cruel. I mean, laws are cruel to people who want to break laws. I think, you know, if people are doing something illegal, then it's fair. I think a law should be fair, and this law seems to be pretty fair. So Suella Braverman, when she stands up in the Houses of Parliament to talk about this bill, the bill is going to be backdated to when she stands up to talk about it, to prevent a sort of rush. If there's a delay, if it takes, you know, months to be passed, then the people traffickers will have a window in which they can rush people across the Channel. So that's hopefully going to stop that. I mean, with regards to The Guardian, you know, smearing this bill and saying it's unworkable and, you know, getting human rights lawyers to denounce it, I don't understand. We've got the technology to identify people's political affiliations and, you know, right down to what paper they read and all the rest of it. So why don't we house the people coming across the Channel in small boats near Guardian readers instead
it's not just the Guardian.
Instead of just putting them in
Leo,
communities,
let's be balanced.
impoverished communities that
is
haven't asked for them.
quoting Tory MPs who've warned the Prime Minister that this is unworkable. This is Conservative Party members.
Oh, politicians will take any opportunity to get some leverage for themselves. And there's a lot of people who have a vested interest in these people coming across. I mean, human rights lawyers, there's a huge industry of charities, NGOs, human rights lawyers who take taxpayers' money through legal aid to then try and get people to stay in the country who are, generally economic migrants. And it's actually damaging the rights and damaging the prospects of genuine refugees.
Well, I mean, Emma, come in if you want. There are certainly a number of people that are gaming the system, and there are also undeniably lawyers who are profiting from helping them. Do these suggestions, does this new bill address any of that, in your view?
If they make this unworkable, it will be unworkable. The problem with the system we've got is that they've closed a lot of the safe and legal routes, so it's actually almost impossible to do it in a way that is safe and legal.
But that's not true. We issued nearly 1 million, in fact, over 1 million visas last year.
But they did not necessarily come through the legal routes. That's the question. And if we don't have safe and legal routes, then they will come through unsafe and illegal routes. So this is the problem that we've got. We need to have. The border force is being completely decimated as well, and that's one of the things. One of the reasons for the backdating is that the unions have warned that they'll be completely overwhelmed if it's not done in that way. So it's actually come from the unions as much as it's come from anybody else. In terms of whether the law is workable, we'll have to see the details. We haven't really seen. We've heard a lot of the headlines. We've heard a lot of the rhetoric. Suella Braverman, back this or you're not patriotic. It's just such a ridiculous thing to say. The opposition, their patriotic duty is to oppose. Frankly, I'd like to see a better workable system. I don't think anyone thinks the system we've got now is better.
But what is a better workable system? Because it's so easy to say that with respect. I mean, everyone wants to see a workable system. What is the workable system?
Well, what we need are safe and legal routes for people to apply who are able to claim asylum.
And the government has said they are going to reintroduce safe and legal routes once they've got control of the border again, and that is
I don't think that's the way round to do it. You've got to introduce the safe and legal routes so that people can take them. That's how you end the people trafficking.
Do we need safe and legal routes? I mean, Salman Abedi, the Manchester Arena bomber, he was a Libyan refugee who was saved in the Mediterranean by the British Royal Navy. So we saved him and brought him to this country, and we know what he did. I mean, can't people claim asylum closer to their country?
They can claim. They have a right to claim asylum here. A lot of them, most of them don't. We do not take the idea that we take more refugees than anybody else is just a myth.
Nobody's saying that.
But we should make sure that we are doing this in such a way that it breaks the business model of the people traffickers.
Yeah.
That's why safe and legal routes are essential. In terms of your Guardian readers taking in refugees, I'd just like to say well done to my mum and dad, who have a lovely Ukrainian family living with them at the moment.
Ukrainian doesn't count.
They are literally refugees.
They are, but they are one of the ones. I think there's only 3 legal basic countries that you can get in, whether it's Ukraine, Hong Kong, or I think Afghanistan. There's a limited number that the government have brought in, a tiny number. But yes,
well done to your
and
mum
well
and
done
dad.
to you.
Yeah.
I was with Olga and Alex the other day. They are such a delight. It's so lovely to have them as part of our now extended family.
Well, could I ask you, what happens to those folks now? What happens? I mean, presumably they haven't got access to their bank accounts or various things.
They have just got their visas to stay for 3 years. They now have UK bank accounts. Alex is going to school, absolutely loving it. He's 9. He's just the most fantastic kid. Olga's just got a job.
Yeah.
So thankfully, they seem to be integrating really well and really kind of working hard to be part of our country.
Well, good luck to them. Leo, we go to the Eye in their opinion column. We don't have a blasphemy law, but we have a system that punishes it. This is about a Wakefield school damaged in a Quran scandal.
Yeah, so a schoolboy, a 14-year-old autistic schoolboy, accidentally scuffed a Quran and the local community, Muslim community, was inflamed by this. And in fact, I think it was a Labour councillor who spread the rumour that the Quran had been set on fire. So there were, a lot of local Muslims who were very angry and sent death threats to the boy. And instead of investigating the death threats, which are an actual crime, the police investigated and charged the boy with a non-crime hate incident for scuffing a book, which isn't a crime. So this is, it's interesting to see this in the Eye. Even such a left-wing paper as the Eye is now saying, like, wait a minute, we've created this this society of openness and tolerance, but we're tolerating some pretty terrible behaviour.
Yeah, they summarise that freedom of religion does not mean a right to be offended, and I think they very often get confused, don't they? Or certainly the argument is twisted a little bit on that route. What do you think, Emma?
I completely agree. We shouldn't have blasphemy laws, and we shouldn't have blasphemy laws by the back door. You don't, we do have freedom of religion, freedom to practice religion. That doesn't mean freedom to enforce those practices on other people who don't follow them. OK, you've chosen a story inside the Times, Emma. Gay parents fare as well as straight ones. Yeah, I just thought this was a lovely, happy story for the end of the day. Kids growing up with gay parents, with transgender parents, lots of different types of family do just as well, because it's love that matters, and loving your kids and bringing them up. And there were so many scares when I was growing up about gay parents, and it's just turns out good parents are good parents.
How do you measure that?
It's in terms of educational attainment, in terms of children's mental health. Those children are faring just as well as as children from more traditional families.
Interesting.
OK. So, Leo, you've got Jeff Bezos has a super yacht and it's hit the waves.
Oh yeah, so Jeff Bezos has created, I think it's the world's biggest yacht, and it's going to cost like $500 million to build, and it's going to cost $25 million a year just to keep it afloat and keep it running. So it's great. So every time you're shopping on Amazon, you're paying for this guy, who's no doubt going to use it to travel to Davos and travel to climate change conferences and lecture us on how we shouldn't be taking an EasyJet flight to Tenerife. But meanwhile, the rich love having their toys.
Yes,
they deserve them. We don't deserve a little break in the sun.
Do you know what I ate last night?
What?
I ate an Amazon Fresh chicken jalfrezi. Now, don't judge me. My husband brought it home from the shop. It's one of these shops where you don't have to go to the till. It kind of weighs all. I don't understand it. I've never been in, but have you seen
I've been in
Amazon
once.
Fresh?
It's really weird.
And honestly, I was really tired. I was in a rush, and it was a little tiny pot which had rice, all fresh vegetables and chicken, and it was absolutely delicious, really low calorie, really healthy, and really cheap.
Yeah,
but I feel a bit guilty about it this morning.
Isn't it? That's why he's a billionaire.
Because I'm funding his bloomin' super yachts, is why.
Oh, well.
Instead of supporting my local.
But you may have some money down the back of the couch, right? Emma, tell us more about this.
So there's a thing called the dormant assets, which is where there's money in bank accounts that doesn't really belong to anyone. Nobody really knows who owns it, what it's for.
Yeah.
So after a certain period of time and after a certain amount of investigation, they can't find who owns it. That goes into this dormant assets fund, and that funds a number of different things. And one of the things that they're looking at now, particularly during the cost of living crisis, is for this to be low-cost loans to people who are in hardship. So helping people through this difficult period and giving them loans that don't have high interest, and using this money to really kind of make a difference in people's lives, which I think is a great idea. I mean, one of the problems with dormant asset scheme is that lots of people want to use that pot of money for lots of different things. There are some really great community schemes and stuff, but I think this is a great idea during this period.
I think this is a terrible idea. People who are in hardship, people who are poor, they're generally there because they're terrible with money. So why give them the money? They're just going to spend it on scratch cards and glue to sniff or whatever. I think what we should do is give it to millionaires like James Dyson. If we give James Dyson this money, he's going to invest it, he's going to create jobs, he's going to invent a new vacuum cleaner. It's going to be amazing.
I don't know whether to take you seriously or not.
I mean, he is a comedian.
Yeah, I'm going not. All right, Emma, what about this one? Views on sex and divorce. We are now as broad-minded as Scandinavians, according to the Mail.
We're one of the most liberal countries in the world in terms of our attitudes to things like divorce and casual sex. I'm not sure if those two things are connected or not. But yeah, we've and it seems every generation has actually got more liberal on this. The oldest generation of pre-war people have the lowest levels of liberal attitudes, but even they have shifted significantly statistically in terms of their attitudes to how people behave and who people choose to love. So we are becoming a much more liberal country.
And on that note, thank you. We'll leave it. Thank you both. Leo and Emma, thank you very much indeed. Emma's been on before. We know what to expect. Leo, very entertaining, very insightful. Thank you very much indeed. Good to have you. Cheers. It is 30 minutes now before 9 o'clock.
Let's bring you up to date with today's top stories. And the Home Secretary says the government's proposed law to tackle small boat crossings will push the boundaries of international law. The government is set to unveil new legislation to remove and ban illegal migrants from ever returning to the UK.
Unions representing NHS staff are to begin talks with the government aimed at averting more strikes. The negotiations will focus on pay for this year and next year for ambulance workers, physiotherapists, nurses and midwives.
A yellow weather warning is in place for large parts of the UK with snow and ice on its way. Arctic air sweeping in from the north is expected to cause significant disruption with difficult travel conditions throughout the week. And tonight is expected to be the coldest night of the year.
Well, tickets for one of the most anticipated events of the year, the Eurovision Song Contest, go on sale today.
Yes, Ukraine were crowned the winners of last year's contest, but security concerns caused by the Russian invasion has meant the event will actually be hosted in England because, of course, we came second. Well, who better to tell us more than our own Scouse showbiz reporter, Ellie Phillips. Good morning to you. How excited are you?
I am so unbelievably excited for Eurovision. I cannot wait. I can't believe it's only like 2 months away now and it's all happening. I was actually in Liverpool last week and the whole city is buzzing for this event.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely buzzing for it. So excited.
Right, so tell us how we get our hands on tickets then.
OK, so tickets go on sale at midday today. They are only available from Ticketmaster. So if you see any scams out there for any tickets, if it's not Ticketmaster, do not bother with it. And what they said is they recommend people set up their Ticketmaster account before midday because you don't want to suddenly get there and be like, oh, I've got to spend 10 minutes doing that. You'll miss the boat.
Right, OK.
So tickets go on sale at midday. There are actually 9 shows that you can go and see over the week from the Monday to the Saturday. There are 3 live shows, so 2 semi-finals, one on the Tuesday night, one on the Thursday night, and then the grand final on the Saturday night. But what happens is, before each live show, on the day, there's a full rehearsal that you can get tickets to go and see. So you'll see all the performances in all their glory. And the day before, there's another one as well. That's just to make sure that the live performances and the live run goes really, really smoothly. So you'll essentially see the same thing, but just with some fake numbers read out when they do the kind of reveals of who's won and stuff like that. So tickets go on sale at midday today. They range from about £30 to £380. More expensive ones are obviously the live shows and the grand final, which is really difficult to get tickets to. But yeah, my advice would be log on early. If you've got a phone and you've got a laptop, get ready to get in that virtual queue to get these tickets because they are like gold dust.
Oh my goodness. Are you competing just with British people? Are there assigned numbers per country? Or
No.
is it like you're competing with everyone in Eurovision?
Everyone in the world in Eurovision. So in terms of if anyone's watching from Europe, their time is 1 o'clock Europe time. But in the UK, the tickets go on sale at midday. Now, 3,000 tickets have been held back to give to Ukrainians who now live in the UK, who had to flee the war. So they'll be there because it's really important that as this event takes place, Liverpool and everyone involved in it is very, very aware that it's just the host city with the host country. It's for Ukrainians. So they really want them to be there and be a part of it.
And just to explain how that will be different on the night of the grand final then when we're watching, because yes, it'll be in Liverpool, but presumably Ukrainian hosts, Ukrainian performance from the last year's winner or whatever.
Yeah,
So
I don't know the in and outs of the details yet of the performances, but I know there's so much planning going on because they are desperately, just so passionate about making sure that this is a true representation of Ukrainian culture and also, British music as well put in there. Graham Norton's going to be hosting the grand final, but he's actually, he's going to do the commentary as well. We all love his commentary on it. We didn't want to miss that. So he's going to basically be running between hosting on stage and doing the commentary in the commentary box, which is really funny. And then you'll have Mel Edroich, who's Melon Sue, you know her.
Oh, yeah.
She's going to kind of jump in on the commentary when he's on stage. They're going to work it that way. And then, like you mentioned, to have a Ukrainian host, there's a guy called Timur Miroshnikishenko. He's a Ukrainian broadcaster. I've met him before. I met him at the National Television Awards, and he was so excited for it to be in Liverpool because he said, you know, for those artists that are going to come over from across the world to perform in the hometown of the Beatles is going to be really exciting. And he'd met with the people behind Culture Liverpool who were saying how much they really wanted to make it and work with them to make it for them.
What about, because obviously last year we had Sam Ryder, and he was such a star.
I know.
And I love that track. I can't think of it now, but it's
Such a star. What's happened to him since?
No, he's been everywhere.
He's been everywhere.
Yeah, he really has.
He's
yeah.
really
I've never seen, never heard of him.
Oh, you would have. I mean, he's got the long hair and he wears that onesie jumpsuit thing, and he's got that really high voice. He's been everywhere. I can't
He has
think,
been
like the Brits
everywhere.
and things.
Brits, NTAs, everything, yeah. Rocking it out on stage.
But will we be as successful this year? Who have we got representing us?
So our entrant hasn't been announced yet. It's thought, though, that the BBC will announce who we're going to be, you know, representing the UK this week. There are 5 names that kind of been banded around, but we're really not sure at the moment. Previous years, it's been, I don't know if you've known, there's been like a show where we voted for who it is. That changed. So Sam Ryder was actually picked by a company called Tap Music, who worked with the BBC to find the artist and the song.
And
it
that
worked
worked
so well. So they're
well.
doing it again this year.
Yeah.
Names on the list, potentially. Birdie, I don't know if you remember Birdie.
Skinny Love.
Skinny Love.
I love that
yeah.
song. But you're allowed to already be an artist?
No, you're allowed to already be an artist,
Oh.
absolutely. People were saying Steps might do it. I don't think it'll be Steps, yeah. I really think this woman might get it. She's called Rina Sawayamayama. And she's a Japanese-British singer. There's a picture of her here. She's kind of up and coming. She's been doing the rounds on the BBC recently. She's got this edgy, sexy pop that I think would work really, really well with Eurovision. So she's on that list.
Sexy prop.
Edgy, sexy pop.
Oh, pop.
Yeah, it's an official genre now.
I mean, her dress is like an edgy, sexy prop, to be fair. I can't work out what's dress and what's not.
So we're hoping that we'll know this week who's going to represent the UK.
Oh, Freya Ridings. She's on repeat in our house.
Yeah,
Kids
Freya
love
Ridings,
her.
May Muller and Mimi Webb. So they're all young women, young British artists. So hopefully, I think it will go to one of them. And I think actually after what's happened with Glastonbury not representing women enough, I feel like this might be an opportunity to kind of shine a light on one of our successful female artists.
Shine a Light was a song, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was the last time we won, actually.
Yeah.
In 1997, Katrina and the Waves.
Good knowledge.
Thanks, babe. Did my homework. Yeah, it was the last time we won 25 years ago.
Gosh.
Oh, gosh.
So, but we did come second last year, so who knows? I think we could be in with a good chance.
Times are changing.
Yeah.
Ellie Phillips, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. Right, we're going to take a break there. Stay with us. We'll have more on the Prime Minister's pledge to take back control of the borders once and for all.
But first, snow's on the way. Let's find out all the details with Greg Dewhurst.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst. Welcome to your latest broadcast from the Met Office. A cold, icy day to come for many of us today. There will be sunny spells, but also the risk of snow. So icy stretches from the word go. The reason for this is we've got northerly winds across the UK coming down from the Arctic at the moment. At the same time, weather systems trying to move in from the Atlantic, increasing the risk of some rain, sleet and snow to southern counties of England and Wales at times. And we've got some of that this morning across southern counties here, perhaps some slushy deposits in places, some icy stretches elsewhere. Plenty of sunny spells stretching up into northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland, but some heavy snow showers too. Met Office warning those snow showers right through the day, perhaps up to 10 centimetres over the higher ground. In between, though, largely dry, sunny spells. Temperatures, though, for everyone below average today. We'll see highs of just 2 to 6 degrees across the whole of the country. Into the evening time, still the risk of some rain, sleet and snow across southern counties of England. Elsewhere, under clearing skies, temperatures are going to quickly fall below freezing. Still some snow showers moving into parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland and the east coast of England too, leading to some icy stretches. In the early hours, we can still see rain, sleet and snow in the far south of England, perhaps stretching into Wales too. Temperatures well below freezing, perhaps minus 10 to 15 across the glens of Scotland to start Wednesday morning. Icy stretches to start the day, so do take care if you are heading out over the next few mornings. Into the afternoon, we'll see the frost slowly lift. Plenty of sunshine for many. Snow showers becoming fewer across northern and eastern Scotland, northeast England, but still the risk of some rain, sleet and snow affecting southern parts of England into Wales. A cold feeling day, perhaps just something milder creeping into the far southwest later on as the winds pick up here. So over the next few days, there's a lot going on with the weather. It stays unsettled, further rain, sleet and snow at times. Just something a little milder coming into the far south as we head towards the weekend. See you again soon.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hello, I'm Michael Portillo. You can join me every Sunday on GB News. Remember to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel and to download the GB News app to stay up to date with the latest GB News content. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
The Prime Minister vows to take back control once and for all as he prepares to unveil the biggest crackdown on illegal migration in decades.
Hello there, very good morning to you. It is 9 o'clock on this Tuesday, the 7th of March, wherever you're watching or listening from. You're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Home Secretary has promised to push the boundaries of international law as she prepares to unveil new legislation to stop small boat crossings. The measures will be rushed through Parliament today and could be in place by summer.
The latest on the Matt Hancock revelations. Well, today, according to the Telegraph, he reportedly discussed a plan to block funding for a new disabled children's centre. This was a way at getting back at an MP to make the MP back new pandemic restrictions.
The Met Office has extended snow and ice warnings for much of the country as forecasters warn a major change is underway. Arctic air sweeping in from the north is expected to cause significant disruption with difficult travel conditions throughout the week.
And he's Lord Sugar's former right-hand man, Nick Hewer, live in the studio as he explains why he's helping small businesses affected by climate change, unfair trade and farmers as well.
And we love to hear from you throughout the programme. You've got a few more minutes left to send those thoughts in. You can do that on email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbviews.
Top story this morning is Rishi Sunak has vowed to take back control of the country's borders. He says once and for all, as the government prepares to announce a major crackdown on illegal migration.
And GB News has been told that all irregular routes, including those by small boats or in the back of lorries, will be included within the new policy.
Here with his view throughout the programme, our commentator, Conservative MP for Lichfield, Michael Fabricant. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Eamonn.
Any chance of this succeeding?
Well, I hope. I would like to say 100%. And you've got what's his name? Jonathan Reynolds coming on.
Yeah.
And he's no doubt he'll say it's 0%. But I think there's a very good chance it will succeed. The Home Office have been spending a long time going through the legislation to make sure that there can't be challenges, or if there are challenges, that they'll be rejected by the court. So fingers crossed.
So look, Michael, I know you're a big Boris fan. Are you beginning to warm to Rishi Sunak? I mean, he had big success with sort of sorting out Brexit last week, and you were all at the same hotel where he did his big deal with Ursula von der Leyen. And it seems as though, if this is successful, that he might be cracking the migrant boat problem.
Well, it's very interesting you asked me that. I was with some friends and a journalist friend last night, and I was saying that originally I was actually quite anti-Rishi Sunak, really, because I was a big Boris fan. But yes, he is growing on me. He's got a lovely personality. Look, he's not Boris. Nobody's like Boris. Although some people think my hair looks like Boris, but it's not meant to. But you know what? Rishi is growing on me because, you know, he's personable. He does want to get things done. He's technocratic. I suppose in some ways technocratic people are not as attractive as ebullient people.
Yes.
But sometimes you need technocracy, if there's such a word, to get things done. And let's hope this thing will be done. As it is in heaven. Sorry.
I mean, there will be people, and, you know, perhaps not watching us this morning, but there will be people concerned about the message this sends out. Will we be taking our fair share of people? Because a lot of countries dealing with worse problems, France, Germany, whatever it may be. But also, you know, if we're pushing the boundaries of international law, I mean, we have a proud history of stepping in and helping those who are fleeing war and persecution. Do we not?
We do have yes, absolutely, and we did that before the Second World War, up to a point with the Kindertransport. We should have done more. And incidentally, I mean, we had a treaty to protect Czechoslovakia, but we ignored it because it was a pragmatic thing to do because the British Army wasn't ready at that time. But, you know, 45,000 boat people coming across is a hell of a lot of people to actually deal with, particularly when most of them, we believe, are not refugees. They're economic migrants. Now, there's nothing wrong with economic migrancy. I mean, this has been going on for years, the great pogroms in Russia. Some of our most able people in this country are the descendants of Jews who came across after persecution in Russia. But you know, of that 45,000, as I said earlier, I just wonder how many thousands we don't know about because they're now at the bottom of the English Channel. So something has got to be done, and I think this is a step in the right direction. Whether it'll work, only time will tell. The idea is that it should deter others from coming across, and of course it'll take time for people to get the message that there's absolutely no point in paying £5,000 to people smugglers because you're either going to drown, God forbid, or you'll just be returned to Albania or wherever, or Central Rwanda, if you do try and make that dangerous crossing.
The MP for Bury North, that is James Daly, front page of the Daily Telegraph today. Their revelations from Matt Hancock continue, and this one quite tough. Basically, Hancock saying that he would block a what is it called, a child
disability children's hub.
Yeah, in Mr. Daly's constituency, unless he backed him with his COVID measures today.
Of course, it never happened. I mean, he did the WhatsApp, but no threat was actually made. It just didn't happen. The system worked. These threats were just sort of empty threats of what he was thinking of doing in a WhatsApp. Again, as I said earlier, I just don't know what possessed Matt Hancock to give these WhatsApp messages to a journalist and naively expect her not to use it. I mean, at the moment, there's some bets going on with some journalist friends of mine about how long the Daily Telegraph can keep running this story. I mean,
I think about 32,000 words worth. They do that. Thank you very much indeed, Michael Fabricant there. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Joining us now, Shadow Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds.
Good morning to you, Mr. Reynolds. Hoping you can hear us. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, your reaction.
Hear you great, yes. Good morning.
Good. Your reaction to these plans being drawn up by the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister. I don't know if you've seen The Sun this morning. The PM taking direct aim at the Labour Party, perhaps trying to put some clear blue water between the two parties, saying that Labour have voted against taking action on this issue. What is Labour's plan? Not only do they have no plan to stop the boats, they don't want to do so either.
Well, good morning. Yes, well, first of all, I mean, how many times have we heard this? Isn't it an exact rerun of the arguments over sending people to Rwanda? The government says we're going to tackle this, people won't like it. And what happens? Nothing happens. They get their plans in place. The problem gets worse. And why does it get worse? Because they don't tackle criminal gangs. They go for the people who are the victims of this rather than the criminal gangs behind it. And then second of all, they don't process any asylum claims. If you're only processing 2% of the claims that were made last year, which is where the government is at, you don't know who should be in this country and who shouldn't be in this country. And until they actually threaten us with some basic competence, they're not going to solve the problem. So we'll look at the detail of what they're proposing, but I feel we've been here before.
So how would you be tackling these?
Which is different to this. We would take the money they're wasting on these gimmicks like Rwanda and we'd invest that in the National Crime Agency. That unit would be there to tackle the gangs. We would seek agreements with France and with Belgium to return people, because if you haven't got those agreements in place, it's no use threatening people with not being able to claim asylum. Where are you going to put them? You're going to put them in hotels, which is why the government spends £5 million a day on having to do that. And if you don't think the government has actually processing their claims.
You don't think the government has sought to achieve those deals? I mean, it's easy to say we would seek the deals. Would you get them? I mean, everyone wants those deals, but the French have already got twice the number of asylum applicants as us.
But look, you need them in place, because where are you going to return people to who shouldn't be in this country if you have an effective system in place? I think the government has a very poor relationship with our European neighbours across the board. But I think the crucial thing is, regardless of where you put people and what agreements you've got in place, are you processing the claims and finding out who has the right to claim asylum in the UK and who doesn't? And until they do that, I think everything else, quite frankly, is a gimmick. And I think they need to accept some responsibility for forever promising us that they will take action and never delivering. I mean, for once, why don't they, instead of over-promising and delivering, just get on and make a difference and stop trying to play this for the politics? They're embarrassed, I think, by their record, which is why you have those headlines today.
The headline and the inference of the headline was that you as a party don't have a view, or you're very much friend of the migrants and it's very much open door, or it would be very much open door in this country. I mean, you sound very much like a man who has a plan there with that. Would you want to put on record today where Labour stands with a view to migrants coming into the country? How strong would your rebuttal of them be?
I think, quite frankly, comments like that from the Prime Minister are disgraceful. I mean, on an absolute minimum, if they were processing, as a Home Office, the same number of claims, the same rate of claims as existed under the last Labour government, they wouldn't have this problem to begin with. I mean, it is their incompetence which lies behind this, and everything else is a distraction. And saying people who want to focus on the criminal gangs and the exploitation and put real resources into law and order and tackling criminal activity rather than things like Rwanda, which, let's be clear, haven't solved the problem, because we're here again having the same argument. Saying that is people who want an open door policy is frankly ridiculous. And I think the Prime Minister, he has to be better than that. We all expect better than the Prime Minister, but ultimately he's back in this position because his policies, the things he has promised in the past, and the whole government this applies to too, it hasn't delivered. So we're back to where we've been many, many times before. And that is what they need to recognise. It's not our fault. They've got their own way. They've got a majority of 80 for crying out loud. They can do what they want, but they're not delivering, and that is the core problem here.
You talk about Rishi Sunak having to do better, having to be better. What about Sue Gray and Sir Keir Starmer? Sir Keir Starmer was asked repeatedly yesterday when he began those discussions with Sue Gray. Incredibly important because it undermines the impartiality of the civil service, and he refused several times to answer that question. Why?
Well, because, first of all, I understand there's legitimate interest in that because this is a high-profile person who's, got a huge reputation for competence, for integrity. So I understand genuinely the legitimate interest in that timescale. The reason we can't put that into the public domain now, and we will in future, but the reason we can't do that now is there is a process to follow when someone is leaving the civil service for any job, and we're seeking to respect that process and do that in the way which it's supposed to happen in. But this is frankly all it's about, is the Labour Party wanting to recruit the best people to take seriously the responsibility we have as a party that wishes to take over from the government. It's got nothing to do with the inquiry that went on into the government's misbehaviour in the pandemic. Sue Gray wasn't even the first person they appointed to that. She had to come in and do it because the person they appointed was actually at the parties they were supposed to be investigating. And Boris Johnson has no one to blame for his downfall other than himself. So look, this will be in the public domain. We're seeking to follow the correct process for this. We didn't put this recruitment decision into the public domain ourselves. Journalists got it. That's what sometimes happens. But this will happen in time. But it's about nothing other than trying to recruit the best people and follow the correct process to do so.
You're in full flow and, obviously a busy week ahead with the budget happening, and your views there on everything from corporation tax. How would you lay it out? What's your big fear?
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, there's got to be some help with the cost of living crisis continuing in that budget. I don't think energy bills can rise for households as currently is planned. But for the bigger picture, the economy as a whole, look, we think you've got to tackle the fact that this country has the lowest rate of business investment of any major economy. And you will do that in a way which then will solve the productivity problem, the problem of low growth. And it's not just a question of the headline rate of corporation tax, because we've got to acknowledge we've had the lowest rate of corporation tax of major nations, and we've had the lowest rate of business investment. A country like Japan, highest rate of corporation tax, highest rate of business investment. So what is crucial is not the headline rate, but the allowances, the incentives that are in place. For us, that's got to cover not just how generous that is, but how wide is it? Does it cover investment in human capital, in skills? Does it cover businesses who lease equipment as well as buy it? And that is what Rachel Reeves is going to announce in a speech to Make UK, the manufacturers' body today. She's going to talk about how we want to work with business to do that, who's going to be involved in that, and crucially, keeping a regime in place for the long term. 22 changes of the corporation tax regime in this Parliament alone. It's no wonder businesses don't know if they're coming and going, and we seek to do much better than that.
Jonathan Reynolds, Shadow Business Secretary, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this morning.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew Pearce is here now with a second edition of To The Point at 9:30 alongside Beverly Turner. Good morning.
Morning.
What are you up to today?
Well, the big story, of course, is the immigration crackdown. Finally, they're going to legislate to try and stop the illegal boats crossing the channel. We've got David Davis, the former Brexit secretary, coming into the studio to talk about it. I think he's going to say, as much as he wants the deal to happen, that what the Tories are proposing won't work. It won't be legal because they say they can effectively derogate from part of the European Convention on Human Rights, I think David Davis is going to say, no, they can't. So this could be just more bluster and gimmickry by the Tories. They've got to do something, because the whole country wants it to get sorted. Labour don't have an answer. We heard that from Jonathan Reynolds talking about bluster. So it'll be very interesting, and we're talking to lawyers about it too. We're also talking about Sir Keir Starmer. 9 times he wouldn't answer that question when Sue Gray was appointed, and it is important because she did do that inquiry into Partygate. Were they talking to her even then? I think she is an impartial civil servant, but Keir Starmer has got to be much more truthful. He's a lawyer. He knows the importance of these things. We're also talking about, when is a woman not a woman? Apparently when you're in the NHS, because new guidelines for doctors and nurses, you may see a woman in your surgery one week, but the following week you can't assume she's still a woman, but apparently they're now going to fight back. That's also a question for Keir Starmer, of course, because he was famously asked, does only a woman have a cervix? And he said, it's not a straightforward question. Actually, it is. He ought to know. He is married.
Oh, exactly.
You know more about it than me. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Andrew, we look forward to it. Thank you so much. And congratulations on your first show
Thank you very much. Great to be with you.
We're going to be speaking very shortly to the former apprentice and countdown presenter Nick Hewer about his campaign to get a better deal on trade for farmers around the world right after this.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 9:20. You'll know our next guest as Lord Sugar's former aide on The Apprentice and, of course, the host of Countdown as well. But today, Nick Hewer is a man on a mission to help local businesses around the world combat unfair trading practices.
He's a patron of the Fair Trade Foundation. He's promoting the charity's Fair Trade Fortnight campaign, and we're glad to be joined by the man himself here in the studio. Nick,
good morning.
Very
good morning
very
to you
good seeing you.
Great to see you again.
How much of things out there are not fair? We all like to think we'll do the right thing and we'll buy from the right sources and whatever. How much of it is not fair?
Quite a lot. But here's the deal, and I've been involved with fair trade for 10 years, and I was sort of seduced by the idea that the small farmer on a little plot of land somewhere on an island out in the Caribbean or in West Africa, growing bananas, hasn't got a chance when it comes to selling to the big food producers and retailers. But fair trade is an organisation of hundreds of thousands of farmers, and fair trade guarantees a proper price, a steady price, and a premium, extra money to go to the local community. And I thought this is wonderful, and it is wonderful. And I've seen what it really means to those small farmers, sliding around on some volcanic hill in the Windward Islands with just a few banana trees.
Well, look, I definitely consider myself someone that when I'm buying stuff from overseas, like coffee or bananas, I will look for the fair trade sign and I'll make that conscious decision. But what about here in the UK? How can we? What are the big offenders when it comes to unfair farming and whether people are getting? Is it milk, for example? We don't pay enough for our milk, do we? How do we?
No, we don't. Well, it's a problem. I get it, absolutely, because you've got all these cows producing milk and the supermarket, or whoever it is, comes along and offers a price that's less than the cost of production. And they say, well, take it or leave it. Well, what's the farmer going to do with all this milk? Pour it down the drain? But fair trade, which is essentially, and I think it's 80% of the world's food is produced by 500 million tiny farmers, and I've seen them at work, not all of them, obviously. But there's an added problem now, and that's climate change. Climate change, because it's becoming increasingly difficult for those small farmers, be they coffee or cocoa or bananas or whatever it is, to grow as the land dries up under the heat. Now, the premium that fair trade pays, you'll be interested, in South America, the fair trade farmers planted 300,000 trees so that they could grow the coffee bushes underneath the trees in the shade. That's what's happening. Now, if you buy fair trade in the supermarket, and people like Sainsbury's and Waitrose, they're great. You're helping that farmer, and actually you're guaranteeing the future of those foods. That's the point. If you want chocolate in 30 years' time, we should live so long.
Yeah, I think you're right there, because we want to make a connection between where our food comes from and how it ends up on our plate, but also that we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely right. Absolutely correct. And we owe it. Listen, we're going through a cost of living crisis, okay?
Yeah.
And people are hurting. Well, they're hurting down there too. They've still got to have petrol for their tractors and all the rest of it. Everybody's under the cosh. And
so
as you know,
what's your suggestion? What
Buy fair trade. Buy fair trade. It's no more expensive. And in fact, people, some of the supermarkets, they're on the value shelves. There's no choice, really. It's stupid not to. Why wouldn't you want to help that chap feed his children, but also guarantee the future of the food that he's growing? Sounds simple to me.
You need to get the apprentice teams out into farms in the UK, get them to put their minds to some of the problems that we have.
Do you know, I was reading yesterday that when you work on The Apprentice, you've got to sign an anti-nuki agreement, basically.
Really?
Nuki? As an anti-nuclear?
I don't know how to describe it as such, but...
You're not allowed to have relations.
Did you ever have to sign one of those?
Certainly not. You'd run away from such a thing.
Apparently, I was reading this history, they're all at it.
Well, so they're all breaking the rules?
At what?
They're all becoming more familiar with each other down through the years, and always have done.
Look, if you were locked up in a house for weeks on end with, attractive people,
yes,
and you were 40 years younger or 50 years younger, What would you do?
Well,
you're drawn to those sort of things.
They become more attractive, whether they are or not, I suppose. That's the thing about it.
I don't know what to say. Don't know why you're looking at me.
I'm just trying to educate you in these things.
I am very educated and enlightened.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there we go.
There we go. By Fair Trade, and Nick Ure is there representing it, and he's speaking on behalf of these small farmers all around the world, and I think we should do more. You are the equivalent of what Jeremy Clarkson is for British farmers then.
Well, it's kind of you. And I think he's doing a great job. He's doing a great job.
He really is.
But look after those who are growing our food and look after those who really need to feed their children. Buy Fair Trade. Yeah. Okay. That's a good way to start.
Well, on those wise words, Nick Ure, Fair Trade patron and top all-round man, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Eamonn and I will be back from 6 tomorrow morning.
Will we?
We will, I hope. But coming up next, it's Bev and Andrew with To The Point.
Very good morning. We are here. We've got a packed show coming up this morning. We're starting with David Davis, former Brexit Secretary, to find out what he thinks about immigration. What else have we got?
And we're also talking about when is a woman not a woman, apparently in the NHS, but doctors and nurses are fighting back, saying they will decide when a woman isn't a woman. Can we ask the Labour leader about that too?
Yes, why not? And first of all, though, a very quick break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is